Chapter 33-22. Although Shiju was still a cub. But after all, it had its own consciousness. This kind of choice was naturally left to it to decide. If it wanted to maintain its current state, progressing step by step, she would also agree to it. Shiju raised its little head as its dark brown eyes sparkled with sparkling radiance, giving out a low sound. Its head rubbed against Yiqing Luo's palm. This was Shiju's answer. Yiqing Luo and Shiju signed the contract. Naturally it could understand Shiju's words. As for the others, they were all little war pets, so naturally they could understand beast language. Shiju said, "I want to become stronger." Yiqing Luo laughed lightly as her 5 fingers rubbed its little head. Why does Shiju want to become stronger? Shiju gave a low growl. Shiju replied, "Because, Mother said, as long as I become strong enough, Mother will meet me." Following that, it gave a low growl. "Moreover, I want to be like the other companions, to be able to protect Master, protect everyone." Yiqing Luo cupped its little head as she gently planted a kiss on its forehead. "Since you've decided, then listen to your father's words. I will accompany you by the side." Shiju nodded its head vigorously. It wanted to stay by its master's side. He had to make himself stronger. It couldn't miss any chance to become stronger. The place which Azure Dragon chose was the cave which it was sealed in. Because here, its remnant presence was the thickest. Moreover, it was the safest. Under Azure Dragon's help, Shiju had already started its dragon race's advancement ritual. Yiqing Luo sat by the side waiting. Unknowingly, more than half of the time had passed. The sky started to darken. A few little war pets had already nestled by Yiqing Luo's side, surrounding her in the middle as they fell asleep. Yiqing Luo rubbed the side to keep her warm, while Chi-Chi who had covered her with its furry tail. Her peripheral vision coincidentally saw Zhu Wu Axian who was resting with his eyes closed. Even if he was resting with his eyes closed, his entire body was emitting a chilly aura. This man. Just like his name, as though, like a heartless person. But when facing her, his gentleness and change, she could feel it. From Zhu Wu Axian's change, to those words which he said previously. There was also wind chimes. Zhu Wu Axian should already be very clear. The Yiqing Luo who had once given him his first warmth, no longer existed. She was not the person he was looking for. But why, he has no intention of giving up. "Lass, don't tell me, you want to fall in love with someone else." Old Man Song's mocking voice suddenly rang in his mind. Hearing Old Man Song's voice, Yiqing Luo's eyelashes trembled. Then, he pressed his hand on his wrist and closed his eyes. His divine sense entered the Azure Dew bracelet. She didn't notice. In the instant that her divine sense entered the Azure Dew bracelet, the man who was resting with his eyes closed slowly opened his ice-cold eyes. His vision was fixed on Yiqing Luo. In this dark cave. The dim light in his eyes flickered, but it was not real. Within the Azure Dew bracelet. Yiqing Luo's divine sense had just appeared in the Azure Dew bracelet when it pounced towards Old Man Song's direction. "Old Man Song, I miss you so much." Yiqing Luo hugged Old Man Song's spiritual body. Although she couldn't feel his temperature, but to be able to see him appearing in the Azure Dew bracelet, she felt satisfied. "I'm not too sure about the specifics either." Old Man Song cupped his chin and recalled what had happened before Chen fell asleep. "At that time, you wanted to forcefully undo the contract with the Azure Dew bracelet. I naturally couldn't allow you to act so recklessly. However, just as this old man was about to stop you, I suddenly felt an extremely powerful force. That power was very warm, and it was so strong that it could directly suppress the power of you forcefully breaking the contract and resisting me. At that time, this old man seemed to have heard someone say something in my ear. After that, when this old man opened my eyes, it was the time when you contracted the Azure Dragon. Powerful force. Chapter 33:24. And what did that person say to Old Man Sung? Who could that person be? The person who appeared at that time and prevented her from breaking the contract with the Azure Dew bracelet. Which also meant that that person knew that she had the Azure Dew bracelet. Why would he help her? But, from Old Man Song's description and the fact that Old Man Song had returned to her side and condensed a physical body. For that mysterious person. She was still grateful. Luckily there was that mysterious person. She did stupid things that didn't succeed. Old Man Song still stayed by her side. No matter what that mysterious person's purpose was. She was very grateful to that mysterious person. If there's a chance, I must thank that mysterious person in person for letting you come back. Yiqing Luo raised a big smile and once again stretched out her hands and hugged Old Man Song. She truly felt the warmth of Old Man Song. It made her feel like she was dreaming. There will be a chance. At that time, although my consciousness was already very fuzzy, but I can be sure that that mysterious person must be waiting for you. Old Man Song chuckled as he caressed Yiqing Luo's head. She nested in the Azure Dew bracelet for a while. Until Old Man Song sensed that someone was calling her from the outside, she then left the Azure Dew bracelet. Yiqing Luo's mood was very happy. Not only did Old Man Song return to her side, he could also condense a physical body. And, he could also walk out of the Azure Dew bracelet with a physical body. Only, it was still the same as before when he was a spirit body, he couldn't leave her, within 100 steps. However, he could appear in a physical body. This was already a huge improvement. In the future, when she became stronger, she would definitely be able to reconstruct Old Man Song's physical body. When Yiqing Luo opened her eyes, she met with several furry little faces in front of her. There was even a faint smile at the corner of her mouth because of the joy. After seeing the few little friends in front of her, Yiqing Luo hugged Chi-Chi's little head. What's wrong? Ugly woman, are you a pig? Sleeping so dead, no matter how I call you, you won't wake up. Chi Yan ridiculed. Yiqing Luo's other hand hooked Chi Yan's long neck and pressed its small body into her arms. Then, she gently looked at Chi-Chi. Did I sleep for a long time? What time is it? It's the time. Chi-Chi obediently rubbed against Yiqing Luo's palm. If you continue to sleep, Master and that damn fatty's bet will be lost. Yiqing Luo immediately stood up. She had actually stayed in the Azure Dew bracelet for quite a few hours. She pressed her aching brows and glanced sideways at Shiju's direction. However, there was nothing there. Even the Azure Dragon was nowhere to be seen. Yiqing Luo was stunned. Where's Shiju and Azure Dragon? Shiju, it. Chi licked her lips hesitantly. Qinglong, it. This hemming and hawing look made Yiqing Luo's joyful mood suddenly sunk. What's the matter? What happened to Shiju and Qinglong? Master, don't be anxious, Shiju is fine. Chi heard the urgency in Yiqing Luo's tone and hurriedly pacified her, but how should I put it? Perhaps, Shiju is the offspring of a leopard-type mirage beast and the sacred beast Azure Dragon. It's a little special. What kind of special method? After being comforted by Chi, Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief as her curiosity was piqued. Chapter 33:25. Yiqing Luo raised her hand as she calmly pressed Chi Yan's head into her arms. After that, she looked smilingly at Chi. Where are Shiju and Azure Dragon? Chi Yan. Motherf *Ker, was this sacred beast being despised? Was this ugly woman targeting this sacred beast? Yiqing Luo ignored the rage in Chi Yan's heart as she followed behind Chi as they walked out of the cave. When she passed by Zhu Wu Axayan, her footsteps paused slightly as she glanced sideways at him. Her vision swiftly swept past his face. His complexion was no longer as pale as yesterday. His thin lips also had some color of blood. It showed that the injuries in his body should have almost recovered. She was assured, "You rest here for a while, I'll go take a look at Shiju and we'll leave this place later." Leave this place. Zhu Wuaxian muttered these 4 words as his lowered eyelids flashed past a chilly intent. Yiqing Luo didn't hear his murmur clearly as her slender brows rose slightly as she gave out a puzzled syllable, He suddenly raised his head. That pair of deep and cold eyes stared straight into hers. His eyes overflowed with seriousness, making her unable to shift her gaze away momentarily. His cold thin lips moved slightly. "He's waiting for you outside." That he was referring to Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo was stunned as her gaze turned serious and firm as she nodded, "Yes." Zhu Wuaxian's thin lips pursed tightly. His vision was still fixed on her. After a long time, his eyes drooped as his head also lowered. Between the two of them, there was silence. Especially that man with his head drooped, as though he was shrouded in a haze. That feeling made Yiqing Luo frown tightly. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something. But she didn't know what to say. The more she said, it would only give Zhu Wuaxian some hope. In the end, she shut her mouth as she walked past him step by step. Her footsteps had no hesitation or pause. Because of that, she didn't discover it. Just as she walked to the entrance of the cave, that man with his head drooped down, slowly turned his head sideways. A pair of cold eyes stared at the back of the departing figure. His gaze, suddenly bright and suddenly dark, extremely treacherous. After walking out of the cave, the fresh scent of the forest greeted them. Yiqing Luo shook off the thoughts of Zhu Wuaxian's earlier look from her mind. Since there was no way to give Chu Wuxin any emotional response, Chu Wuxin had no other choice. He had to widen the distance between them. Just as he was about to catch up with Chi-Chi and look for Shiju, suddenly, the sky darkened. An enormous creature suddenly dashed in front of Yiqing Luo. That huge dragon head looked at Yiqing Luo anxiously. "Last Qing Luo, are you all right?" Yiqing Luo was stunned. "I'm fine, what's the matter?" The azure dragon moved closer to the dragon's head and looked at her body for a while. After confirming that she was indeed fine, he heaved a sigh of relief. "It's good that you're fine. Just now, I sensed an extremely strong dark energy here. I thought that it was the group of puppets from yesterday. Powerful darkness. She was here just now. Why didn't she feel anything?" Now, she was a profounder at the 4th rank of the Sky Profounder realm. His perception should have improved. "Master." Suddenly, a black shadow leaped down from the azure dragon's body. That voice was on par with Chi-Chi's voice. Chi-Chi's voice was hovering between a Lolita and a Shota, whereas Shiju's voice was a pure Shota. It was so adorable that Yiqing Luo's face turned red. Chapter 33-26. Qi Yan took the opportunity to get out of her grip, fluttered his wings and quickly escaped from Yiqing Luo. "Shiju, you can speak now." Yiqing Luo was about to gently stroke Shiju's furry little head. But when he looked down, he saw the little thing in his arms. Yiqing Luo was dumbfounded once again. In his bosom was a little black ball. It was indeed a little black ball. However, when he held it in his arms, the furry sensation had already turned into incomparably hard scales. That's right, scales. Can you imagine, a leopard with the appearance of a small leopard but covered in dragon scales? Not only that. Those 2 dragon horns on Shiju's head also revealed the embryonic form of dragon horns. Although it was still a pitch-black mass. But at least it had a shape. Yi Qing Luo finally understood. Why was Chi-Chi so hesitant when she mentioned Shiju? After all, it was her little battle pet. Chi-Chi was still very clear about it. She preferred cute, furry little things. It wasn't that Shiju wasn't cute now. Instead, this appearance was really a little strange. Mistress. Shiju tilted its head and its bright brown eyes were filled with grievance as it looked at Yi Qing Luo's startled expression. Mistress doesn't like me anymore. Yi Qing Luo hugged it tightly. Cough. How could I not like Shiju? I'm just a little shocked. Shiju's eyes suddenly lit up. Rubbing her little head against Yi Qing Luo's bosom, I knew Master wouldn't hate me. Big Brother Scarlet Flame only knows how to scare me. Saying that, it raised its head and stared at Yi Qing Luo seriously. Master, I'm only in the evolution stage now. When I'm through the evolution phase, I'll return to my furry self. Yi Qing Luo tapped its little forehead. No matter what Shiju turns into, I like it. However, she raised her eyes and looked at the azure dragon with some astonishment. Because of the difference in race, the way Shiju evolves is also different. Generally speaking, like Chi-Chi and Chi-Yen. If they wanted to evolve, they would do so in a deep sleep. Why was it Shiju's turn? It was just that its outer appearance had the symbol of the dragon clan. The azure dragon looked at Shiju lovingly. It should be because the dragon race is different from the leopard race. That loving look made Yi Qing Luo unable to bear it as she hugged Shiju in her arms. He could tell. Azure Dragon truly loved his son. Suddenly, she thought of something. Are you going to the magical beast forest to look for Shiju's mother? The emotions in Azure Dragon's eyes fluctuated greatly. But soon, everything returned to normal. Its dragon whiskers drooped, and the light in the depths of its eyes dimmed a little. For now, I won't go, but... Yi Qing Luo didn't know much about the past between the green dragon and the mother beast, so she wasn't in a good position to make any suggestions. Alright, as long as you think it through. Chapter 33-27. Zhu Wuxin was not inside. Even the place he was sitting on was flat, as if no one had ever sat there before. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly. Was Zhu Wuxin going to disappear again? Was it the same as the inn on the South Wave continent? Suddenly, Yi Qing Luo's mind surfaced the scene of Zhu Wuxian raising his cold eyes to look at her. He asked, "Is he waiting for you outside?" She answered, "Yes." At that time, his eyes lost all light. It was because of this sentence. Was that why he chose to leave alone? Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips tightly as she turned around and replied indifferently, "Since he has left first, let's go too." If Zhu Wuxin couldn't get rid of his obsession with her, between them, this was indeed the only way. Leaving alone was the best choice. Just as Yi Qing Luo was about to leave, Azure Dragon suddenly opened his mouth. "Last Qing Luo, wait." Yi Qing Luo's footsteps halted. Azure Dragon's eyes darkened and he asked solemnly, "How did he leave?" "This. I don't know." Yi Qing Luo shook her head. "Before I walked out of the cave, he was still there. Just now, we were outside the cave the entire time, but we did not sense his aura when he left." The Azure Dragon's tone became heavy. Yi Qing Luo was stunned. Indeed. They were at the entrance of this cave just now. Nor did he leave. She did not see Zhu Wuxin come out. But now... Zhu Wuxin wasn't here. How on earth did he leave? Or perhaps, just how powerful was he? Even the Azure Dragon could not sense his aura. Alright, since he has already left, there's no point in delving into this matter. Seeing Yi Qing Luo keeping silent, Azure Dragon sighed. "You should rejoice that you and him are not enemies, otherwise it would be difficult to deal with him." Yi Qing Luo's vision shot towards the direction where Zhu Wuxian was sitting earlier. That was right, if it was an enemy. Chu Wuxin was definitely even more difficult to deal with than the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Should she rejoice that Chu Wuxin was obsessed with her? Actually, her selfish hope. Being able to get along with Zhu Wuxin was like getting along with Long Yunjian, Qiao Jin, and the other brothers. However, he could only think about it. Just like that, a man and a group of beasts arrived at the entrance of the forbidden area. Yiqing Luo was just about to keep the little companions into the pet space. Suddenly, the lush grass in the surroundings swayed. Following that, many normal-sized three-eyed heavenly beasts emerged from the ground. The one in the lead was none other than Zhao Tutu's heaven-reaching beast. Little by little, more than 50 of them surrounded him from all directions. Yiqing Luo frowned and stood in front of her companions. What do you want to do? These three-eyed heaven-reaching beasts prostrated themselves on the ground in fear when the azure dragon appeared yesterday. Then, he tucked his tail between his legs and left dejectedly. Now, he actually came to look for trouble again. Were they not afraid of Azure Dragon? Roar! Jiao Tutu's Tongtian beast took a step forward and growled at her. Human, we're not here to cause trouble. We just want to thank you and beg you to forgive us for our reckless actions yesterday. Did he come to express his gratitude and apologize? Chapter 33:28. If it wasn't for the contract between you and Lord Azure Dragon, I'm afraid we would still be controlled by that bunch of people. So it's necessary to thank them. Jiao Tutu's heavenly beast lowered its head slowly and its front limbs also prostrated. It made the most respectful gesture. After that, it continued, what questions do you want to ask? As long as I know, I will definitely answer. Those ferocious three-eyed heavenly beasts yesterday. At this moment, all of them were extremely obedient. Yiqing Luo smiled and asked, why did you help that bunch of monsters? And when did they come into this forbidden area? Answer me in detail. If we don't help them, all the demonic beasts in this area will be annihilated. The heavenly beast's eyes were filled with anger. As the boss of this area, I will absolutely not allow any human or any other species to bully the demonic beasts. How cruel were the methods of the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing Luo was very clear about it. To be able to make the arrogant three-eyed heavenly beast, the strongest among the demonic beasts, so resentful and unreconciled, it must be some underhanded means that forced the three-eyed heavenly beast to provide help. As for when they came here, the heavenly beast thought for a moment. We are demonic beasts. Those beasts in the outside world cannot tolerate our existence. Of course, we don't have a good impression of those beasts and don't want to interact with them, so this area belongs to us demonic beasts. And because of Lord Azure Dragon's suppression, humans can't step into this area, but just 3 days ago, a group of monsters who claimed to be from the Palace of Darkness broke in. Their bodies were filled with the aura of the dead and their bodies were rotting. No matter how we attacked, those monsters could get up again. After they found the place where Lord Azure Dragon was sleeping, the 6 people you saw yesterday followed them here. After saying those words, the heaven-reaching beast added, it is clear that their target is Lord Azure Dragon. Based on their conversation, it seems that they have a way to contract Lord Azure Dragon. Merely, the prerequisite for that is to prevent you from contacting Lord Azure Dragon. She was also aware of this point. Just like before, the heavenly beast was eager to chase her out of the forbidden area. And without hesitation, it told her the location of the metal magnet spirit grass. It only hoped that she would leave quickly. Why? From the very beginning, the Palace of Darkness was so sure that if Azure Dragon met her, he would definitely form a contract with her. Could it be that the secluded Darkness Palace had long seen through Shiju's identity? Or, the Abyss Palace believed that as long as it was one of the 4 sacred beasts, they would form a contract with her unconditionally. After all, she already had 2 holy beasts and a half-soul holy beast by her side. Also, contract a sacred beast, especially a sacred beast like the Azure Dragon. If it was not voluntary. Wasn't it as difficult as ascending to the heavens to form a contract? What method did the Palace of Gloomy Darkness have to be so sure that they could contract the Azure Dragon? They didn't say the specific reason, so we don't know either. Jiao Tutu's Tong Tian Beast saw that Yiqing Luo didn't speak for a long time and took the initiative to speak. Yiqing Luo's vision fell back onto it. All right, I can feel your sincerity, go back. She smiled and waved at them. However, the 50-odd piercing beasts still stood their ground, showing no signs of moving aside. Chapter 33-29. In order to express my thanks, I've selected 30 of the strongest heaven-reaching beasts among our heaven-reaching beasts as my thanks gift. Jiao Tutu's beast had just finished its sentence. The heaven-reaching beasts that were surrounding them moved to the front and formed a line in unison. I have this confidence that the strength of our heavenly beasts is much stronger than those so-called high-level mirage beasts outside. Jiao Tutu's sky-reaching beast looked at the 30 sky-reaching beasts that had stepped forward with pride in its eyes. Yiqing Luo. Giving away brothers without a word. 33-eyed heavenly beasts. Just like that. Chi said, Master, quickly agree. 3-eyed heavenly beasts are the most powerful beasts among the demonic beasts. It's not a bad choice to let a group of demonic beasts be our servants. Qi Yan agreed. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and looked at the beast. You really want to give these 30 beasts to me? Jiao Tutu's beast nodded. I have considered it for a long time. This is the result of careful consideration. Of course, I am not giving them to you purely to repay your kindness. Most of the reason is to thank Lord Azure Dragon. The Azure Dragon who was named looked up at them. Jiao Tutu's heaven-reaching beast's eyes immediately lit up with excitement. While Lord Azure Dragon was asleep, he used his own power to protect this area. It's also because of Lord Azure Dragon's protection that our 3-eyed heaven-reaching beast race has been able to flourish until now. The heavenly beast's attitude was very firm. Yiqing Luo had no intention to decline. Most of the brothers in Devil class did not have their own battle pets. If they could let the heavenly beasts contract with them or become their battle partners, it was a good choice. She pondered for a moment and said, I can accept these 30 heavenly beasts. But I do not intend to keep them by my side. Jiao Tutu's heavenly beast was stunned, a trace of hesitation flashed in its eyes. Yiqing Luo did not intend to hide her decision from the heavenly beast and continued, I will arrange for them to be my brother's battle pets. Of course, I can promise you that these heavenly beasts will choose their own masters and they can choose to contract or be companions by their side. When Jiao Tutu's heaven-reaching beast heard these words, the expression in its eyes relaxed a little. As long as they want to return here, they can. Yiqing Luo smiled as she looked around at the 30 heavenly beasts. If you agree, I will take you in. The heaven-reaching beast hesitated for a moment. In the end, he raised his head and looked at her with determination. I believe in Lord Azure Dragon's choice. I believe in you. Outside the forbidden area. The current scene wasn't the same as the previous day, where the people of the various factions were gathered together. The faces of the dozens of people who stayed behind were pale and filled with anxiety and fear. At the very front of the entrance of the forbidden area, Hao Nanren couldn't hide the pride on his face. Yiqing Luo had only set a time limit of 48 hours. Now, 40 hours had passed. Just another 8 hours, whether it was Yiqing Luo or the royal family's power. They would all belong to his Jade Dome sect. However, he seemed to be the only one with a smile on his face. Suddenly, the sound of someone kneeling on the ground could be heard. Overlord, Overlord, Miss Yi will be fine, I beg you. I beg you to help the East Continent first, help the East Continent. The dozens of people who stayed behind looked over. Chapter 33:30. These 10 over people who stayed behind were the representatives of various powerhouses who stayed behind. The other powerhouses' cultivators had all rushed back to their own powerhouses. Because just yesterday afternoon, a mysterious powerhouse attacked the East Continent. Previously, they had only heard of monsters that were invulnerable and impervious to fire and water, but now, they had appeared on the Eastern Continent. They then realized. Why did the South Continent fall in such a short period of time, almost being annihilated? Secluded Palace's attack was swift and sudden. Most of the powerhouse's cultivators were still gathered at the entrance of the Forbidden Grounds. Towards this sudden attack, they had yet to react in time. East Continent had already been invaded by more than half of their territories. East Continent Monarch was already mentally prepared. But he had not expected that Secluded Palace would choose this timing to attack the East Continent. He immediately stabilized the cultivators' emotions as he arranged for them to fight against the Secluded Palace in an orderly manner. At least till Yiqing Luo came out of the Forbidden Grounds. Most of the cultivators had some suspicions towards Yiqing Luo, placing all their hopes on a 15-year-old young lady. This was something which they could not accept. But now that things had come to this, they had no other choice. No matter if it was to hold on till Yiqing Luo came out of the Forbidden Grounds, or for their own territories. They had to rush up and fight against that bunch of monsters. Outside the Forbidden Grounds, every powerhouse's cultivators left 1 or 2 people behind to watch over the Forbidden Grounds while the rest returned to their own forces to fight. Secluded Palace's attack was extremely overbearing. As though they wanted to occupy the East Continent in the shortest amount of time possible. East Continent Monarch guessed. Possibly, Secluded Palace's people wanted to take advantage of Yiqing Luo's absence to occupy the East Continent. So that was why they were so overbearing. But East Continent Monarch's guess was nonsense to Hao Nanren. As one of the 4 major sects, the sect master of Jade Dome's sect who was stationed in the East Continent, Hao Nanren had no intention to help Secluded Palace's attack at all. The entire Jade Dome sect was indifferent as though they were hanging on high. Whereas Hao Nanren was calculating the time in his heart. As long as it was more than 48 hours, he would be able to openly let the Death Warriors seal the entrance of the Forbidden Grounds. Even if Yiqing Luo was still alive. He also wanted her to die in there. As for the East Wave's sovereign and the profound practitioners of the other forces, they had repeatedly persuaded him to arrange for people to stand guard here. As the sect master of the Jade Dome sect, he had no choice but to come out and fight. But Hao Nanren's arrogant attitude. He wanted all the people from the major forces to completely give up on him. It was a matter of life and death, and it was also a matter of the survival of the continent. Hao Nanren's actions made most people in the East Wave continent completely disappointed in the Jade Dome sect. Especially, it was at this moment. The East Wave monarch knelt down in the direction of Dmo Xian and said those words. This caused the profound practitioners that had stayed behind to be extremely shocked. Di Zun. It was a masked man dressed in purple. Was it Di Zun? Had they heard wrongly, or had the East Wave sovereign spoken wrongly? However, a glimmer of hope gradually rose in their hearts. If the man in front of him was really the legendary Di Zun, the East Wave continent would be saved. However, such a hope had yet to take shape in the hearts of the crowd. The elegant man slowly turned to look at the East Wave sovereign, who was kneeling on the ground. He was clearly wearing a mask. But everyone could clearly feel it. Chapter 33-31. At this moment, everyone suddenly realized. This man's aura was actually so strong. Just before this, they only felt that this man was noble and elegant, with an extraordinary status. But now, when the man's aura was fully unleashed, from head to toe, that overbearing, powerful, dignified and noble aura was like a scorching sun. It made one unable to shift their gaze away. but unable to look straight at his nobility. The Overlord. If this man was the Overlord, they absolutely had no doubt. They were saved. They were saved. Everyone's heart surged with a huge sense of joy. As long as the Overlord took action, there was nothing to fear about the secluded palace. I am here to accompany my wife. The man's cold voice was calm and serene. It was just a simple sentence. It made the surrounding people's backs soaked in cold sweat. Following that, the surrounding cultivators who stayed behind suddenly reacted to a very important matter. Earlier, the lady who entered the Forbidden Grounds was the Overlord's wife. The Overlord and the West Continent's original Three Springs sect's young matriarch, Yi family's seventh Missy, were together. Basically, the entire Nirvana realm had heard about it. That meant the lady who was addressed as Imperial Madam by the East Continent monarch. The lady who walked into the Forbidden Grounds and whose life and death was unknown. Was that legendary figure, Yi's seventh Missy? No wonder. They felt that Yi Qing Luo's name was extremely familiar. The cultivators who stayed behind started to feel apprehensive. Yi Qing Luo was the Imperial Madam, the Overlord's wife. The Overlord's wife had entered the Forbidden Grounds. There was no way anyone could walk out of that place alive. If the Imperial Madam really couldn't walk out. If the Overlord was infuriated. No one dared to think about it. All of them shifted their vengeful gazes onto Hao Nanren. If it wasn't for the Jade Sky sect master, they would have targeted the Imperial Madam. The Overlord had already helped the East Continent to deal with the secluded palace. The East Continent wouldn't be like this, losing a third of their territory. Now, even the remaining territory was about to be forcefully invaded by the secluded palace. Moreover, Hao Nanren wasn't surprised at all, and looked extremely pleased with himself. It was obvious that he had long known about the Overlord and Yi Qing Luo's real identity. At the thought of this, everyone's resentment toward Hao Nanren grew. It was obvious that Hao Nanren was using the public to deal with Lady D. As the sect leader of the Jade Dome sect in the East Continent, he should settle the conflict between him and the Lady Emperor himself. He had used the innocent onlookers to create momentum for himself and target the Imperial Madam. If he did this, the Overlord might let him off for the sake of his status as the sect leader. However, did Hao Nanren not care? Would they offend the Overlord because of this? Lord Overlord, Imperial Madam agreed to come to East Water Continent. Doesn't that mean she agreed to help East Water Continent? Lord Overlord, for Imperial Madam's sake, I beg you, please help. The East Wave Sovereign kowtowed heavily. When the Palace of Netherworld was attacking the East Continent in a threatening manner. As the East Wave Sovereign, he was unable to rush to the front lines and stop the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Because he was the monarch of the East Wave Continent. More importantly, only Yi Qing Luo could save the East Continent. Chapter 33-32. However, whenever the news of cities being invaded came, the East Wave monarch couldn't sit still anymore. He was a smart man. He could tell how much the Overlord doted on the Emperor Lady. Therefore, the East Wave monarch wouldn't use any righteousness to persuade the Overlord. Instead, he used the Emperor Lady. As expected. After hearing about the Emperor Lady, the Overlord slightly raised his eyes under the mask. That cold and sharp gaze was like a sharp blade that pierced straight into his heart. The East Wave monarch felt a chill down his spine and cold sweat rolled down his forehead. It's because little Luo wants to play that I didn't destroy the East Wave continent. Dmo Xian pursed his thin lips. His voice was so cold that it made one's hair stand on end. The fear in the East Wave monarch's heart rose to the peak. The other cultivators hated Hao Nanren even more. Overlord, the one who has been targeting the Emperor Lady and instigated her to enter the forbidden area, is the sect master of the Jade Dome sect. We will hand the sect master of the Jade Dome sect to the Overlord and let him do whatever he wants. The East Wave continent will not complain. We only hope that the Overlord can save us. Yes, yes, yes. It's the sect master of the Jade Dome sect's fault. He forced the Emperor Lady to enter the forbidden area. We will throw the sect master of the Jade Dome sect into the forbidden area and let him find the Emperor Lady. As the Profounder spoke, they swarmed towards Hao Nanren's direction. Hao Nanren's behavior had completely annoyed the people of the East Wave continent. The Overlord's name was right there. They would rather offend Hao Nanren. They didn't want to offend the Overlord. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you touch me? Hao Nanren didn't expect that the group of cultivators would suddenly attack him. Hao Nanren scolded them with a red face. However, he was directly flipped over by a group of people and pressed onto the ground. No matter how Hao Nanren yelled, those cultivators refused to let go. Hao Nanren was the sect master of the Jade Dome sect. His profound grade was extremely high and he wasn't weak. But after all, he couldn't fight against all sides. Especially, he didn't believe that this group of cultivators from small forces would dare to make a move against him. The entire area outside the forbidden area was in a hubbub and chaos. At this moment, suddenly, there was a loud explosion. Following this, countless bird-type demonic beasts flapped their wings and dyed the sky pitch black. The smell of blood and slaughter began to spread. A terrifyingly powerful dark force emanated from the surroundings. This caused everyone in the surroundings to stop what they were doing and look towards the horizon in shock. The East Wave Sovereign's face turned pale. Not good. The people from the Palace of Gloom are here. Dark Nether Palace. The profound practitioners who stayed behind cried out in shock. Why did the people from Dark Nether Palace attack here? Could it be that they have already occupied Jade Dome City? That's not right. The East Wave Sovereign's expression was solemn as his gaze swept towards the entrance of the Forbidden Grounds. Their goal is to seal the entrance of the Forbidden Grounds and prevent the Imperial Madam from leaving. The profound practitioners panicked. How did they know that the Imperial Madam was in the Forbidden Area? Is there a spy? Ah! Suddenly, a scream rang out from the crowd. A profound practitioner was sent flying. Following this, a giant bird beast swooped down from the sky and grabbed onto the profound practitioner's shoulder, lifting him into the air. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, countless birds and beasts rushed towards the profound practitioner. Chapter 33-33. It floated down from the sky, only the torn pieces of the profound practitioner's clothes remained. All the profounders exclaimed in surprise, and their gazes were filled with astonishment as they looked at the birds and beasts that filled the sky. This group of birds and beasts were so ferocious. They were so fast that they couldn't even react. Screech, after tasting the human blood, the birds and beasts cried out in excitement. Huge birds and beasts were circling in the sky. The sharp eyes of the beast seemed as if it was staring at its prey as it stared fiercely at the profounders below. Someone is coming. The cultivators were in this strange atmosphere. A group of people walked in from the outside of the faintly discernible enchantment. There were about 30 people in that group. The person walking at the front was a woman in a black robe with an exquisite figure. The woman slowly walked to the entrance of the forbidden area and fixed her gaze in the direction of the entrance. Is it here? The woman's voice was seductive. A burly and expressionless man behind her nodded. The woman waved her hand. Go, set up the array formation and seal the entrance. The rest of you, kill everyone here. The woman's arrogant words. It stunned everyone present. They looked at the clothes of the woman and the 30 people behind her. They were from the Palace of Darkness. Who was this woman? She wanted to kill all of them with just 30 people? Were the people from the Palace of Darkness so arrogant? However, there was no time for everyone to be shocked. As the woman gave the order, the people behind her moved quickly. The birds and beasts in the sky also swooped down. The expressions of the cultivators changed drastically and they panicked. They started to deal with the people from the Palace of Darkness who had suddenly barged into the forbidden area. They couldn't care less about how Nanren who had fallen to the ground. These 30 people were not humans at all. They were corpse puppets. The 60 or so people who stayed behind to guard the place were all profound practitioners who couldn't be considered to be very strong. They had no chance of winning against these corpse puppets. In addition, there were 2 new corpse puppets. They rushed towards the entrance of the forbidden area and started to set up the array formation in an orderly manner. For a moment, the back mountain of the Jade Dome sect was filled with blood. Blood-curdling screams rose and fell. Looking at the 2 majestic undead corpse puppets fiddling with the array formation, the East Wave Sovereign's face turned pale with fright. He immediately looked at Dmo Xian who had unknowingly hidden in the dark. The secluded Darkness Palace obviously intended to stop Yiqing Luo from walking out of the forbidden grounds. What's wrong with His Majesty? Isn't he going to make a move? Instead, he allowed the monster from the Palace of Darkness to set up a formation at the entrance. The East Wave Sovereign could not understand this at all. What on earth was the Overlord thinking? Hearing the miserable screams in his ears, as well as the screams of countless profound practitioners, telling him to quickly flee, he felt a chill run down his spine. The East Wave Sovereign's body was trembling. His hands, which were hanging by his side, suddenly clenched. When he looked up again, his eyes were filled with determination. He strode towards the direction where Dmo Xian was hiding. He took a step forward. Suddenly, an oppressive force attacked him from behind. His wrist was tightly gripped by an extremely strong hand. Immediately after, an ice-cold sensation pressed against his neck. Don't even think about asking the Overlord for help. How Nanren's cold voice was heard beside his ear. The East Wave Sovereign was stunned as his body stiffened. What are you doing? Chapter 33-34. Are you crazy? The East Wave Sovereign's pupils contracted as he roared in disbelief. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness wants to trap the Empress in the Forbidden Grounds because they are afraid that she will affect their plans to invade the East Wave continent. If we really let the Dark Nether Palace form the formation, the entire East continent will be destroyed. How Nanren grinned maliciously as he tightened his grip on his struggling body. This sect master doesn't believe that without her, the East continent will be destroyed. This sect leader is the sect leader of one of the 4 great sects. Can't you deal with the Palace of Darkness? Generally speaking. Yiqing Luo walked into the Forbidden Grounds. Most likely, he had died inside. He told the people of the Dark Abyss Palace to set up a formation to seal the entrance of the Forbidden Land. It was safer. How Nanren naturally wouldn't stop them. Looking at the 2 men, they quickly set up the array formation. It was obvious that the formation was extremely complicated. In his heart, he was faintly hoping that Yiqing Luo had not died in the Forbidden Grounds. He did not die, but he could not walk out of the Forbidden Land. It felt like he was trapped in the Forbidden Land until he died. This was true despair. The East Wave Sovereign's face was extremely pale. The sharp blade on his neck had already cut through his skin. The stinging sensation caused him to scrunch up his face. The East Wave Sovereign glanced at the elegant and noble figure in the darkness from the corner of his eye. The blood-curdling screams became increasingly shrill in his ears. There were fewer and fewer profound practitioners from the forces who were still alive. No. He couldn't let the headmaster of Abyss Palace continue like this. No matter what the Overlord was thinking. He couldn't wait any longer. As long as the Palace of Gloomy Darkness knew that Dizun was here, he would definitely not dare to act rashly. I advise you to behave yourself and not play any tricks. How Nanren threatened the East Wave Sovereign as if he had sensed that something was wrong with the East Wave Sovereign's aura. The East Billow Monarch's eyes narrowed. He raised his hand and grabbed How Nanren's arm. Then, he opened his mouth and shouted towards the direction of the darkness, "Emperor." One word came out of his mouth. There was a sharp pain in his wrist. How Nanren grabbed the East Wave Sovereign's arm. Then, he melted the dagger in his hand. "You're back." Suddenly, the concealed Dmo Xian slowly opened his mouth. His voice was very soft, very low. If not for the fact that How Nanren and the East Wave Sovereign were so close to each other, she probably couldn't even hear the 3 words that floated out of his mouth. And it was precisely because of these 3 words of Dmo Xian. How Nanren's hand that was holding the dagger froze. Not good. The female leader of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness suddenly looked at the entrance of the Forbidden Grounds in fear. She strode toward the 2 undead puppets. "Quick! We have to be fast," however, before the woman could finish her words. Her coquettish and charming face instantly turned ashen. Bang! In the air, the sound of explosions was deafening. The surrounding air seemed to be squeezing a huge amount of energy. The astral wind suddenly rose and enveloped the entire back mountain. Everyone could feel it clearly. The ground beneath his feet trembled and slowly cracked. The gigantic birds and beasts that filled the sky suddenly let out fierce roars. Another wave of rapid flapping of wings could be heard. Tight and tight. Swish, swish, swish. The birds and beasts seemed to have lost all their vitality and fell from the sky. The dark sky that was covered by the birds and beasts once again regained its original brightness. What's going on? How did these birds and beasts die? All dead. All the birds and beasts died just like that. Chapter 33-35. They were not the only ones who were shocked. The people from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness were also stunned by this scene. They knew the power of the birds better than anyone else. But now, they didn't even see who did it. Hundreds of birds and beasts died just like that. The woman's face darkened. She frowned and stared at the sky. But at this moment, the sky was once again shrouded in darkness. What's going on? Are the birds here again? The profound practitioners looked around in panic. But the woman's face was not one of joy at the arrival of reinforcements. Instead, it was one of paleness and gloom. That majestic power was getting closer and closer. Fierce astral winds constantly collided with the surrounding air. The huge dark force was monstrous. Roar, roar, roar. Suddenly, the deafening roar of beasts rose and fell. Everyone saw rows of neatly organized shadows rapidly approaching from the horizon. Looking at the silhouette, looking at the size, it should be a beast that moved on 4 legs. But, why would a beast that moved on 4 legs appear in the sky? The orderly rows of shadows covered the sky. Suddenly, a green light appeared. The flickering azure light lit up the dark sky with sparkling light. After that, a deafening dragon roar reverberated throughout the back mountain. Roar, 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 the beasts growled in unison to show their respect. Then, a green dragon gathered and circled the sky. Pieces of green dragon scales glowed brightly, full of power. A powerful pressure pressed down on him. Dragon, that's a dragon. The woman looked at the green dragon circling the sky in shock. She could not hide the shock on her face. The 2 new undead corpse puppets were so intimidated by this majestic aura that they stood rooted to the spot, staring at the sky without blinking. The profound practitioners who were still alive, as well as how Nanren and the East Wave's sovereign, were shocked by the scene in the sky. They could not believe what they were seeing. Were they dreaming? Dragon, it's really a dragon. The dagger and how Nanren's hand slipped. He stood up slowly and looked at the giant dragon in the sky. The supreme dragon. Why would it appear here? The last time a dragon appeared in the Nirvana realm, it was in the West Continent that the seventh miss of the night had demonstrated it once. After that, they never saw the dragon summoned by the seventh miss of the night again. Wait a minute. Yi seventh miss equals Yi Qing Luo equals Imperial Madam. Madam D had a dragon. Could this enormous azure dragon be Lady D's dragon? No, that's not right, they had heard of Madam D's dragon. It was a blue dragon whose entire body was azure blue. Although they had never seen it with their own eyes. However, that was the first time a dragon had appeared in the Nirvana realm. It had long been spread throughout the entire Nirvana realm, no matter how big or small. Lady D's dragon was undoubtedly a blue dragon. Then, this azure dragon, why did it appear here? The huge azure dragon rapidly approached. Only then did everyone realize. There was a vague figure standing on the head of the azure dragon. Amidst the wild gales. That figure's robes fluttered in the wind, making him look like an immortal. One of the corpse puppets looked at the dazed woman and said, "We're too late." Too late, what does that mean? The woman knew this very well, but she was unwilling to accept it just like that. Just at the next moment. That huge dragon's head pressed towards the woman. The dragon's roar soared into the sky, shaking the entire mountain. Chapter 33-36. Following the dragon's breath, it sprayed downwards. It brought about a huge sense of oppression. That voice made the East Wave monarch and the surviving cultivators present revealed a joyous expression. As for how Nanren and those people from the dark forces, their faces turned pale instantly. The lady's petite body swayed uncontrollably as her legs suddenly went soft as she fell onto the ground. This was fear from the bottom of her heart. When the green dragon approached and lowered its head, everyone could clearly see that blazing figure on the dragon's head. It's Madam D. Madam D really came out. Madam D is actually sitting on the dragon. Don't tell me this dragon is Madam D's war pet. The cultivators exclaimed in shock as they discussed fervently. His eyes were filled to the brim with this huge dragon. The young lady's lips curled into a sweet smile. She slowly stood up. Even though the green dragon had lowered its body low enough. But to humans, this was equivalent to the height of a 3-story building. Yi Qing Luo opened her arms. Her red sleeves fluttered along with the strong wind. Like a butterfly's wings spreading out. Her lips curled upwards, her ravishing face was like a stream of gold, peerlessly beautiful. "Ah, Xian, I'm back." She laughed lightly, her voice was filled with joy. Finishing her words, she leaped. There was no presence of profound energy on her body. Just like that, he allowed himself to fall down as light as a feather. Swoosh, a light breeze blew past. Her body fell into an embrace. The elegant sandalwood scent seeped into her nostrils. Her delicate body, which had been chilled by the astral wind, was blown away. Yi Qing Luo's arms hooked around his neck, her eyes filled with smiles, her sweet voice softly called out to her lover, "Ah Xian." Done playing? Dmo Xian's eyes drooped, his deep peach blossom eyes seemed to be plated with light, as he gazed deeply at the young lady's face. Yi Qing Luo buried her head into his chest, rubbing against it. The game is still going on, how can it be enough? She raised her head again, smiling at Dmo Xian. Xian's body is a little cold, did he wait for me for an entire night? She knew. After she entered the forbidden grounds. Dmo Xian would absolutely not leave this place. He would be at the entrance, waiting for her. The man looked at the girl in his arms and smiled sweetly. Suddenly, he bent down and gave her a hard peck on her lips. Yiqing Luo hugged his neck tightly as she giggled. Since Ah Xian is so cooperative, I will reluctantly agree to let you play with me, she purposely dragged out the last word. Her long and narrow eyes curved into a sly arc. She glanced behind her, in the direction of Fox Saint Technique and the other undead puppets. Fox Saint Fa's face turned pale, and his legs turned to jelly as he fell to the ground. He stared at the two people who were hugging each other in shock. You actually really. And Dizun. How could, her fear. It was not just because of the Azure Dragon. And the appearance of Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo came out alive from the Forbidden Grounds and even contracted. The Azure Dragon which the Palace Lord wanted. Fox Saint Fa already knew about this news last night. But he didn't expect Yiqing Luo could really control the head of the four sacred beasts, the Azure Dragon sacred beast. Furthermore, she brought the Azure Dragon out of the Forbidden Grounds. This was totally different from what the Palace Lord had guessed. She didn't expect, after Yiqing Luo entered the Forbidden Grounds, Dmo Xian would still be guarding outside the Forbidden Grounds. Which meant to say, earlier when she appeared with the undead puppets, Dmo Xian had actually been watching by the side. He didn't show his face and didn't take any action. Chapter 33-37. Fox Saint Law was shocked as she turned around and stared at the two new type of corpse puppets. The Overlord is here too, why didn't you say anything? The corpse puppets looked at her calmly. You are the one who brought people to set up the array. You are the second palace master of Secluded Palace. We are only responsible for following orders. Fox Saint Law's throat tightened. Her pair of pupils looked at the pair of fairy-like golden boy and jade girl in front of her in horror. Fear gnawed at her limbs and bones. I was still thinking. How to lure you out, I didn't expect. You are so impatient, taking the opportunity when I am not around to attack the East Continent. Yiqing Luo wrapped one hand around Dmo Xian's waist, smiling sweetly as she looked at Fox Saint Law, the smile on her lips, gradually thickening. That's just nice, then let's settle all of you in one go, and save me trouble later. While she was speaking, her fingertips had already raised the raging glower flame fan. The majestic pressure attacked downwards. Fox Saint Law's expression changed again. She could obviously feel it. Since the last time she crossed hands with Yiqing Luo's ability had become stronger again. And, stronger, not just by a little bit. Beads of cold sweat appeared on Fox Saint Law's forehead. Because Wolf Saint Law died to save her. All this was because of Yiqing Luo. She wanted to kill Yiqing Luo, to seek revenge for Wolf Saint Law. She begged the palace master to get an array. She wanted to trap Yiqing Luo in the Forbidden Grounds, forever unable to leave the Forbidden Grounds. But she had neglected. This piece of Forbidden Grounds was originally Azure Dragon Slumber. How could the array trap Yiqing Luo, who had a contract with Azure Dragon? Fox Saint Law's face was ashen. Imperial Madam. Imperial Madam. Suddenly, not far away, East Wave Monarch, who had struggled free from Hao Nanren, rushed towards Yiqing Luo's direction. East Wave Monarch's face was filled with joy and pleading. Imperial Madam, please save the East Continent. That bunch of monsters from Secluded Palace are about to invade the East Continent's territory. To East Wave Monarch. Yiqing Luo was the savior. Seeing Yiqing Luo coming out of the Forbidden Grounds, and in such a flashy manner, riding on a huge dragon. It was as though he had seen hope. Yiqing Luo was the hope of the East Continent. Yiqing Luo heard East Wave's monarch's voice and her vision fell onto him. I will settle it. 4 simple words. It was as though the East Wave's sovereign had been injected with limitless power. He bent his waist and bowed deeply towards Yiqing Luo's direction. When he lifted his waist again, he returned to his calm and majesty as the ruler of a country. Since he chose to believe in Yiqing Luo, he would no longer hesitate. What he needed to do was to settle all the factors which would disturb Yiqing Luo. Furthermore, he would try his best to complete the conditions which he had promised Yiqing Luo previously. The East Wave's sovereign decisively called out to the 20 or so cultivators who were still alive. They quickly restrained the stunned man behind him. How Nanren's behavior today. This had already caused the hearts of the profounders from the various powers to turn cold. The sect master they respected was a sect master who was willing to maintain the peace of the continent, protect their territory, and protect the people. Not because of his own selfish interests. Time and time again, he had disregarded their lives. This battle, because of Yiqing Luo's return, blew the horn. When Yiqing Luo held on to the secluded palace's second palace lord, riding on the azure dragon, and appeared on the battlefield with Dmo Xian. Chapter 33-38. East Continent's commoners and various powerhouses had treated Yiqing Luo as a deity and respected her. Because Yiqing Luo brought along the Overlord to join in, secluded Darkness Palace's aggressive attack and invasion was completely interrupted. Furthermore, they retreated step by step. The Overlord's power was needless to say. In order to let his woman enjoy herself, he basically wouldn't make a move. Although he didn't make a move. But he stood on the battlefield, his gaze was fixed on Yiqing Luo. That unique aura still gave Nether Palace a huge pressure. Looking at Yiqing Luo's side. A green dragon. A white tiger. A vermilion bird. Plus 30 ferocious 3-eyed heavenly beasts which no one had ever seen before. Adding on Yiqing Luo's explosive power. It was simply a massacre in a slaughterhouse. Apparently, Yiqing Luo was going to have this battle with Nether Palace. It was treated as a testing ground for her to continuously advance 3 grades. After the profound grade advancement, the biggest training was actual combat training. Only through actual combat could she discover her own shortcomings and use the profound energy in her body flexibly. Nether Palace was like a free experience points, how could Yiqing Luo miss it so easily? And this was a slaughterhouse's action. It also made those who knew that Yiqing Luo had a secret weapon to deal with that group of impenetrable monsters from the Palace of Darkness. Various large powerhouses cultivators kept on gathering around Yiqing Luo, hoping to obtain a secret weapon to protect their own powerhouses. After 2 days of battle, Nether Palace was forced to retreat out of East Continent's territory. This result. The entire East Wave continent was overjoyed. The commoners were shouting Yiqing Luo's name and Dmo Xian's name excitedly. But Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian stood on top of the city walls, looking at the direction of Nether Palace which was forced to retreat. But the expression on her face was still not relaxed. The reason why this battle had turned into a slaughterhouse was partly because of her advancement and the fact that she had contracted the Azure Dragon. But this battle was a little too smooth. Yiqing Luo felt flustered instead. Some were happy while others were worried. Just like this, how Nanren, who was imprisoned in the dungeon of the royal family, heard the good news from the guards. All he had was resentment and unwillingness. If it wasn't for that slut Yiqing Luo, the person who saved the East Continent and was hailed as a hero would be him, How Nanren. These honors clearly belonged to him. It was Yiqing Luo, that scoundrel, who snatched away his honor. He, the sect master of the Jade Dome sect, was trapped in this dark place. How Nanren looked around with resentment in his eyes. He scoffed coldly. After he left, How proud that little slut was right now. When the time came, she would die miserably. East Wave Monarch was obviously bewitched by that slut Yi Ching Luo. To imprison him here. Weren't they afraid that the citizens of the East Continent who admired the Jade Dome sect would join forces to protest? Compared to the royal family, his identity as the sect master of the Jade Dome sect was even more noble. The purpose of the Jade Dome sect's existence was to maintain the balance between the four continents in the Nirvana realm. If he disappeared for a few days, the elders of the Jade Dome sect would definitely sense that something was amiss. This investigation would definitely lead to the royal family. If things got out of hand, Jade Dome sect's elders appeared. He had enough confidence to make Yi Ching Luo disappear from this world completely. Chapter 33-39. Suddenly, an ethereal and cold laughter sounded in Hao Nanren's mind. That laughter was full of ridicule. Hao Nanren's expression changed and he quickly looked around. Who is it? Who is it? His movements attracted the attention of the two guards guarding outside. The guard walked in and looked at Hao Nanren. He shouted angrily, "If you don't want to be whipped, behave yourself." After saying that, the two guards stood at the bars of the dungeon and continued to chat. "Stop looking, you can't see me." The voice rang out again. Hao Nanren's pupils constricted. He looked at the two guards who were leaning against the bars of the dungeon and chatting. Their expressions were the same as usual. Obviously, they did not hear this sudden voice at all. Hao Nanren calmed himself down and walked to the corner of the dungeon warily. The dignified sect master of the Jade Dome sect has fallen to such a state. How pitiful, the cold voice seemed to be regretting something as it clicked its tongue and chuckled. Hao Nanren's face darkened and he asked angrily in his heart, "Who are you? What's your motive for looking for me?" The cold voice chuckled again. The illusory laughter seemed to come from all directions. "Do you think that the current you still has something that can be used by this empress?" The cold and gloomy voice mocked without holding back. Hao Nanren, who had always been conceited, could not tolerate someone looking down on him. "Since I have no value, why are you looking for me?" "I just feel that the sect master of the Jade Dome sect is a little ridiculous, so..." I couldn't help but laugh. The cold voice was full of sarcasm. Hao Nanren was furious and his eyes widened. "Get lost." He. Ha 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 ha. Hao Nanren became more and more furious. That voice was like a demonic voice that kept ringing in Hao Nanren's mind. Bit by bit, it tortured Hao Nanren's psychological defense. Hao Nanren had a splitting headache from the laughter. He hugged his head tightly with both hands and finally gritted his teeth as if he had surrendered. "What exactly do you want?" His submission made the cold voice very satisfied. The cold voice did not continue laughing. Instead, it chuckled and said, "The sect leader of the Jade Dome sect is still dreaming that there will be an elder of the Jade Dome sect or an elder of the sect coming to save you. I really think that you are foolish and naive." Hao Nanren's expression froze. "What do you mean?" "Your families, the next successor of the Jade Dome sect that you hid has already been brought into the palace by the East Wave sovereign," the cold voice chuckled in a low voice. It seemed to be mocking him, but it also seemed to be pitying him. Hao Nanren's body stiffened, and his eyes widened in shock. "The next successor is here, especially when he is controlled by the East Wave monarch. Do you think that the elders of the Jade Dome sect who have long wanted to divide your forces will miss this opportunity?" The cold voice was still explaining the current situation to him in his mind. "So, are you still hoping that the elders of the sect will find out that you've been imprisoned and rush over to save you?" When the last word was uttered, Yi Zichen's expression changed. Hao Nanren clenched his fists. No. It couldn't be like this. He had clearly hidden that brat very well. How could he be taken away by the royal family? In his heart, he kept brainwashing himself not to believe the words of this mysterious person. However, there was a voice in his mind telling him. Chapter 33:40. In the end, How Nanren knelt down weakly. He hugged his head and asked softly, What should I do? As the sect master of Jade Dome's sect, even if How Nanren was narrow-minded, he was absolutely not a fool. He naturally knew. The appearance of this sinister voice was definitely not as simple as watching him make a fool out of himself. To be able to silently appear in the dungeon under such tight supervision. And to be able to converse with him without being detected by the guards. It showed how powerful the owner of this sinister voice was. This person would find him. Which meant that he still had some value. And it also meant that this person had a common enemy with him. But How Nanren couldn't guess. Was this person's motive the East Billows royal family or Yi Qing Luo? No matter which one it was. They were all his targets for revenge. Do you want revenge? The sinister voice laughed coldly. How Nanren clenched his fists, yes. Not only did he want revenge. He also wanted to protect his Jade Dome sect. Jade Dome's sect could only belong to him alone. No one else could even think of touching it. Even if it was his own son, he wouldn't be able to get his hands on it. I can help you to walk out of the dungeon, but the rest will depend on what you do. The sinister voice laughed. That's right, that son of yours is hidden very well by the royal family. If you want to find him, you have to put in some effort. How Nanren's eyes flashed as a vicious glint flashed past his eyes. He had to find the son who had the mark of the next sect master of Jade Dome's sect. Otherwise, once that child had a chance to make a comeback, he would absolutely not let him off. If it wasn't for the child who had the God Emperor mark, once he died, Jade Dome's sect would be affected. Otherwise he would have strangled the child to death the moment the God Emperor mark appeared. He was the sect master of Jade Dome's sect. That child had seen him kill his mother with his own eyes. That child had always hated him. He was clearer than anyone else. So he absolutely had to find that child. What do you need me to do? How Nanren asked gloomily. The sinister voice laughed coldly. Do you think you have any value for me to make use of? I don't believe that you will help me unconditionally. How Nanren squinted his eyes and said coldly. The voice laughed again. Indeed, I won't help you unconditionally, but it's also true that you don't have anything that I can use. The voice paused, and the coldness in it sent a chill down How Nanren's spine. However, after all, an annoying fly is also a troublesome fellow to deal with. How Nanren hadn't thought about the meaning of this sentence. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his head and his vision turned pitch black. After that, he lost consciousness. East Wave Continent, Jade Dome City Imperial Palace. East Wave Monarch stood respectfully behind Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian, as his face was filled with reverence. Behind him, the representatives of countless forces also stood respectfully at the side. The East Wave Monarch said happily, It's all thanks to the help of Emperor Madame and Dizun that the East Wave Continent is safe. On behalf of all the people of the East Wave Continent, I thank Emperor Madame and Dizun. The row of representatives behind him respectfully knelt down and expressed their gratitude in unison. Although Yi Qing Luo had a bad premonition. But looking at the people of the East Wave Continent, they were all immersed in the joy of this victory. She didn't have any concrete evidence. Chapter 33:41. Based on Seclusion Palace's character. After being beaten to the point of retreating out of East Continent's borders. But there was still no movement. They must be suppressing their evil intentions, waiting for the right time to unleash it. She absolutely could not let her guard down. Yi Qing Luo leaned on Dmo Xian's arm as she smiled at the crowd behind her. Monarch and I are merely making a deal. You've completed my request and I'll settle Seclusion Palace for you. There's no need to thank me. No, no, no. Imperial Madam's request is for the sake of East Continent. After East Continent Monarch found the God Emperor's imprint, the future successor of Jade Dome sect, he completely understood why Yiqing Luo would raise such a request. Even for him who was in a high position. He couldn't understand. How could Hao Nanren be so heartless to hurt his own flesh and blood, the descendant who would take over his position as Jade Dome sect master in the future? Just to protect his position as sect master? By right, shouldn't he be nurtured from a young age to protect Jade Dome sect in future? But Hao Nanren trapped the boy in the secret room and restrained him with iron chains. He used various humiliating methods to drive the boy crazy. If it wasn't for the fact that the boy was quick-witted and acted dumb, enduring the humiliation. Probably now. He couldn't even keep his limbs and had become a cripple. Luckily, he was able to save him in time. As long as the boy recuperated properly, he would definitely regain his health in time. This boy definitely had a grudge against Jade Dome sect and his own father. Imperial Madam asked him to bring the boy back to teach him personally. Then when the boy grew up, she would let him become Jade Dome sect master openly. She hoped that East Continent royal family and Jade Dome sect would be on good terms. Because he had suffered too much since he was young. The boy would know how to be grateful. It's all in the past, let's not flatter each other anymore. Yiqing Luo waved her hand. She thought for a moment and decided to remind them, Seclusion Palace has always been sinister and cunning. They have lost this battle completely and will definitely find a chance to counterattack. It's better for everyone to be more alert during this period of time. East Continent Monarch heard the deeper meaning in Yiqing Luo's words and his expression congealed. Thank you Imperial Madam for your reminder. Yiqing Luo, East Wave Monarch and various powerhouses representatives exchanged some conventional greetings and instructed them to take note of some small matters. Just as he was speaking, Yiqing Luo's expression changed slightly as her originally smiling long and narrow eyes suddenly squinted. Imperial Madam, what's wrong? The East Wave Sovereign was always good at reading people's expressions. He immediately asked worriedly. The East Wave continent had already regained its peace. However, the East Wave Sovereign's heart was still in a mess. Yiqing Luo's emotions. It was highly possible that it was related to the lifeline of the East Wave continent. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes as her fingertips gently caressed the profound phoenix ring. Then, he glanced sideways. His peripheral vision collided with Dmo Xian's. Her prey had taken the bait. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian looked at each other with a smile and immediately stood up. The two's actions stunned everyone present, including the East Wave Sovereign. The East Wave Sovereign came to his senses and stood up as well. My Lord Emperor, Madam Emperor, what's wrong? It's nothing. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes were deep. Some small private matters that need to be settled. She held on to Dmo Xian's hand and under everyone's startled gazes, they walked out of the palace. Chapter 33-42. Right, Jade Dome sect's young master, it's best that you bring him along and take care of him personally. As for the two people in the dungeon, I'll settle them. East Wave Monarch was a little dazed. He hadn't finished digesting the meaning of Yiqing Luo's words. Why did she suddenly mention the successor of Jade Dome sect? And the two people in the dungeon, could it be that something had happened to the two people in the dungeon? East Wave Monarch was an intelligent man. No matter how many questions he had, he wouldn't voice them out now. He kept replying to Yiqing Luo's instructions. Then he dismissed those powerhouse's cultivators. He rushed to the palace of the successor of the Jade Dome sect. In the dungeon. When Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian appeared together, it caused a huge commotion. Yiqing Luo raised her hand to stop the guard's enthusiasm. The two of them walked quickly into the dungeon and walked towards Hao Nanren's cell door. The guards opened the chains attentively. If Overlord and Imperial Madam want to interrogate the prisoner, just let us bring him over. Why did you come over personally? Yiqing Luo didn't say a word as she walked straight into the dungeon. Her gaze fell onto the corner. A man dressed in a prisoner's uniform curled up on the ground, as though he was in deep sleep. The guard said attentively, Imperial Madam, don't worry. Jade Dome sect master fell here after a bout of madness and hasn't moved at all. Hasn't moved. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as she walked towards the person in the corner and stepped on him. The person in the corner still didn't move at all. The guard heard the heaviness in Yiqing Luo's tone and his heart trembled. The two guards swiftly walked forward as they squatted down and pried open the person in the corner. When her messy and dirty hair was lifted, she looked at him, revealing Hao Nanren's plump face. The guards heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily, he was still around. They hurriedly smiled at Yiqing Luo and were about to speak. But when the young lady saw Hao Nanren's face, her expression turned even gloomier. Her long and narrow eyes seemed to be filled with raging waves. Imperial Madam, is something wrong? The guard was shocked by this powerful aura as he felt a chill down his spine. Yiqing Luo kicked her feet as her round body turned. Look carefully. The guards suppressed their fear and stared at Hao Nanren carefully. One of the guards suddenly turned pale. He's dead. Right, dead. The rotund man lying on the ground was no longer breathing. The guard was stunned as he raised his head in puzzlement and looked at Yiqing Luo. He hoped that Yiqing Luo could give him an answer. Why did he suddenly? The sect master of the Jade Dome sect was dead. They had been guarding the entrance of the dungeon. How did the sect master of the Jade Dome sect die? Madam, I really don't know what's going on. The guards were so shocked that they fell to their knees. Yiqing Luo shifted her feet away from that corpse. She looked at Dmo Xian and curled her lips slightly. If we rush over now, will we be able to catch up to the most exciting part? Yes. Dmo Xian gazed deeply into her eyes. Yiqing Luo held on to Dmo Xian's arm and turned to look at the guards kneeling on the ground. You don't have to blame yourselves, this person is not Hao Nanren. Not sect leader Hao. The guards were stunned and stared at the corpse on the ground. This face, this figure, no matter how they looked, it looked like Hao Nanren. In this world, was there anyone who had the same figure as Hao Nanren? Chapter 33-43. Before he could finish, Yiqing Luo interrupted, No need, Xian and I will settle it. Saying that, she and Dmo Xian walked out of the dungeon. Hao Nanren wouldn't die. Neither she nor the Dark Shadow Palace would let Hao Nanren die. He's dead. As the sect master of one of the four great sects in the Nirvana realm, it would definitely attract the attention of the Heavenly Tao. Right now, the Nirvana realm was being targeted by the corpse puppets and the Dark Palace. The Heavenly Tao was aware of the current situation in the Nirvana realm. He would definitely intervene in this matter. How could the Palace of Darkness allow such a thing to happen? And the reason why she couldn't let Hao Nanren die, it was because if Hao Nanren died because of her, no matter what the reason was, the death of the sect master would be blamed on her. At that time, a lot of troublesome things would come one after another. In any case, they had been fighting in the Nirvana realm for such a long time. There was no response from the upper realm and the heavenly axiom. Rather than relying on the heavenly Tao, it was better to rely on oneself. Therefore, she did something to Hao Nanren's body very quickly. It was also commonly known as recycling. While the East Billow Sovereign was imprisoning Hao Nanren in the dungeon, based on his experience fighting against the Palace of Darkness for such a long time, Yi Qing Luo had long guessed that over at secluded Darkness Palace's side, they would definitely repeat the same old trick, starting from the enemies around her. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. The Dark Ghost Palace made use of this to their advantage. So Yi Qing Luo might as well beat him at his own game. The Palace of Darkness wanted to use Hao Nanren's hatred to distract them and attract everyone's attention. Then, she would use Hao Nanren as bait to lure out the people behind the Palace of Darkness. Although Yi Qing Luo wasn't sure. The person who came to help Hao Nanren would be the person behind the scenes of the Dark Palace. But one thing was certain. This person definitely had an important position in the Dark Nether Palace. As long as he followed this clue and caught the person behind the scenes of the Dark Palace, he would be able to do so. All the future that the gloomy palace had imagined would be for naught. She had sealed most of Hao Nanren's meridians with needles. The current Hao Nanren probably couldn't even defeat a low-level profound practitioner. In addition, in Hao Nanren's body, she placed a goo worm that Miao Yi had given her. According to the Mother Goo's reaction, Yi Qing Luo was able to differentiate Hao Nanren's position very quickly. Everything was indeed as Yi Qing Luo had planned. Following the Mother Goo's response, Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian quickly arrived at a place outside of East Continent's borders. This was a huge palace built of green bricks that seemed to have existed for a very long time. An extremely dense yin qi floated above the palace. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. This place, why does it look so strange? Why don't I remember there being such a palace at the border of the East Wave continent? In the past, there really wasn't. Dmo Xian caressed her fine black hair. There was none in the past, but now there was. Who could build such a palace in such a short period of time? Moreover, this palace looked extremely old. How could he not see that it was a newly built palace? Hao Nanren is in the palace. Could it be that this palace is an illusion created by the Palace of Darkness? Yi Qing Luo asked shamelessly. If it was really an illusion of the Dark Palace, then it would be a little tricky. An illusion of the palace had the owner's consciousness. If she and Dmo Xian were to get so close to each other. Chapter 33-44. This would also expose their tracks. It's indeed an illusionary palace. Dmo Xian looked at the young lady's burning gaze as his thin lips curled into a smile. Does Lil Luo want to go in? Yi Qing Luo held his palm as she smiled. Xian can bring me in, right? Dmo Xian would ask in this way. He must have thought of a way to enter the palace without getting hurt. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped as his deep pupils gazed deeply at his wrist, at that fair and tender little hand. If Lil Luo wants to go in, I can bring you in. Yi Qing Luo's smile had yet to widen. However, the man suddenly held her hand. His fingers tightened as his arm exerted strength. Her body was brought into Dmo Xian's arms. The scorching temperature infected Yi Qing Luo. The man's husky magnetic voice was heard beside her ear, but... Lil Luo, what are you going to use to bribe me to bring you in? You... Yi Qing Luo's cheeks turned hot as she widened her eyes and stared at Dmo Xian. But the moment she raised her head, she met with Dmo Xian's deep and watery peach blossom eyes. That brilliant and colorful light. It was so bright that it made her heart tighten uncontrollably as it palpitated faster. This man. He really didn't let go of any chance to flirt with her. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips rose as her long and narrow eyes curled into a watery arc. She laughed softly as she cooperated with him and said what he wanted to hear. I'll use myself to bribe you, how about that? Dmo Xian's eyes were filled with smiles as his palm held the back of the young lady's head as he suddenly bent down and kissed her lips. It was just a very light kiss before he left her lips. Let's collect the interest first. He laughed lightly as he released the back of her head and held her little hand in his large palm. Let's go. Yiqing Luo regained her senses from the beauty. She actually stood in the palace. What the heck? Wasn't she just standing outside the palace? Why did she come in? Could it be? Earlier when Dmo Xian was kissing her. Brought her into the palace. Did he need to be so mysterious? Looking at the young lady's shocked face and staring at him with a helpless look. The expression on Dmo Xian's face turned warmer. The depths of his eyes were also tainted with a bit of doting and tenderness. Let's go find Hao Nanren. To be able to make such a big scene in the palace, I think, that person must be the palace master of Gloomy Palace. Yiqing Luo pulled Dmo Xian's arm and spread out the mother beast in her hands, following the mother beast's reaction, searching for Hao Nanren's direction. With the guidance of the mother beast, Yiqing Luo quickly came to the room which Hao Nanren was in. However, she and Dmo Xian had just stepped into the room. Behind him, a sinister laugh sounded, "TSK. As expected, you've come." That cold voice was accompanied by a creepy laughter. When Yiqing Luo heard that, her expression changed slightly as she swiftly hugged Dmo Xian's arm and turned around. But behind her, other than Hao Nanren, who was sitting on a wooden chair, there was no one else. The moment he saw Yiqing Luo, Hao Nanren was also surprised. He slammed the table and stood up. You bitch. His eyes were scarlet red as he clenched his teeth, looking as though he was about to rush up and swallow Yiqing Luo alive. Yiqing Luo's vision looked around vigilantly, as she squinted her eyes. Her perceptive ability couldn't detect the aura which was emitting that sneer. Chapter 33-45. Dmo Xian held her hand and squeezed it. This action replaced his reply. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes trembled slightly. Dmo Xian's meaning was. There was indeed a fourth person other than Hao Nanren. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly constricted. She had already advanced to Sky Profound 4th grade. She couldn't sense the presence of the fourth person. It showed how powerful that person was. You slut. How did you know that I'm here? Hao Nanren bellowed in exasperation, and what on earth did you do to me? Why is it that I have no way to utilize the profound energy in my profound jade heart? Are you the one who did it? Hao Nanren howled hysterically. It didn't even attract Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo's gazes onto him. This made Hao Nanren feel that Yiqing Luo totally didn't put him in her eyes. In fact, Yiqing Luo indeed didn't put him in her eyes. Yiqing Luo's thoughts were all on that powerful and mysterious person who couldn't be seen. Slut. In this place, I'm not afraid of you at all. Hao Nanren was flustered as he rolled up his sleeves and pounced towards Yiqing Luo's direction. He hadn't finished his furious howl. Dmo Xian raised his hand slightly. A burst of majestic profound energy sent Hao Nanren flying out. Yiqing Luo half squinted her eyes as she slightly raised her head, as her lips curled into a faint cold smile. Since we will enter the palace, it is within your expectations. Now that this is your territory, do you still not dare to show your true face? She intentionally suppressed her voice to be extremely calm. Her words were filled with provocation towards that mysterious and powerful person. When Dmo Xian indicated that there was indeed a fourth person in this room, Yiqing Luo knew that she and Dmo Xian had fallen into a trap. That person in the dark had long known that they would come to the palace. Or rather, just as she intended to make use of Hao Nanren to beat him at his own game, to use him as bait to attract the mastermind of Secluded Palace. The person in the dark also beat them at their own game, using Hao Nanren as the bait to lure them. Whereas she and Dmo Xian had changed from the hunter to the prey. That person lured her and Dmo Xian into this palace. Definitely. He already had a way to deal with her and Dmo Xian. The current situation. It was unrealistic for them to leave this palace. He might as well take the initiative to attack. First, he had to figure out who this mysterious and powerful person was, hearing Yiqing Luo's words. How Nanren's angry face froze. Little bitch, what do you mean by that? What do you mean that it was within expectations that you would find me? Finally, Yiqing Luo shifted her gaze onto Hao Nanren. The smile in her eyes was tinged with sympathy and pity. You actually don't know. But that's true. With the intelligence of the Jade Dome sect leader, even if he was sold, he would still happily count the money for the other party. What did you say? How Nanren's expression darkened. Isn't that simple? You are nothing more than bait that he used to lure me out. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched in ridicule. Don't tell me, you really think that Secluded Palace's people will save a useless trash like you? Little bitch. Don't even think of instigating this sect leader. Hao Nanren clenched his fists tightly. Ha, ha ha ha. That sinister laughter rang once again. Chapter 33-46. That person was extremely tall and dressed in a black robe. It was the standard equipment of the mysterious person. With his face covered, it was impossible to see the person's face clearly. Especially, the dense black aura that shrouded his entire body was like a spider web, densely spreading out like a huge bloody mouth, causing one's scalp to go numb and fear to rise in their hearts. What shocked Yiqing Luo the most was, even if this person appeared in front of her, she still couldn't sense the aura of the person in front of her. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed slightly, as her slender fair fingers subconsciously held Dmo Xian's hand tightly. The man stretched out his arm and pulled her into his embrace. The warm scent of sandalwood permeated her entire body. Dmo Xian gently circled the young lady's petite body, as if the other party had scared the person in his heart. His pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes instantly shot out coldness, like frost cutting through bones. He looked at that person, Palace Master of the Palace of Gloomy Shadows. The man chuckled. His cold voice, which had been deliberately altered, sounded a little creepy. Your Majesty. I trust you have been well since we last met. This was also tacitly agreeing to Dmo Xian's question. Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. As expected, the Palace Master of the Secluded Palace had come personally. Yiqing Luo narrowed her long and narrow eyes as she sized that person up. You. What's your motive for luring us to the palace that you've created? Weren't you the one who used this trash as bait to lure this empress into taking the bait? The Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace chuckled. Her sharp voice was strangely hoarse. As you wish, I have appeared in front of you. Why, don't you feel happy? Hao Nanren, who was labeled as trash, was speechless. Even now, he still did not know what exactly had happened. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips. If everything went according to her plan, she would be the hunter, using Hao Nanren as the bait to lure out the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. Of course she was happy. But now, the situation was obviously different. She fell into someone's trap and became the other party's prey. Could she be happy? Who knew what kind of trap was laid in this palace, waiting for her and Dmo Xian to jump into the pit? The other party obviously knew that Dmo Xian was by her side. Furthermore, she had used Hao Nanren as bait and Dmo Xian would definitely be by her side. He even dared to play such a trick. Obviously, he had no fear towards Dmo Xian. Towards the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace, Yiqing Luo was more or less clear about him. According to Jun Qingwu and Dmo Xian's previous investigations, The person behind the gloomy palace must be someone with an extremely high status in the upper realm. And Dmo Xian was also from the upper realm. The palace lord of Netherworld Palace wasn't afraid of Dmo Xian's words. Either that, the palace lord of Secluded Darkness Palace already had a surefire plan to deal with Dmo Xian. Or, the palace lord of the Netherworld Palace and Dmo Xian's status were on par. Therefore, he wasn't afraid of facing him. This thought made Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly dimmed. Little Luo, The man beside her gently called her name. His deep and mellow voice was like a clear spring, instantly calming her heart. Yiqing Luo raised her head and looked at him. Mo Yao's peach blossom eyes glowed faintly. I'm here, don't worry. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up as she gave a sweet smile. Emin, I believe you. With Xian by her side. All her uneasiness, under his gentleness and calming presence, disappeared. She hugged the man's firm waist tightly. Chapter 33-47. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as her vision swiftly followed the direction of that aura. Coincidentally, it met with the palace lord's eyes. That's right. It was his eyes. That black cloak was shrouded in, making one unable to see his real eyes. It was like a black whirlpool, constantly surging violently. His sharp gaze was burning. That gaze was indeed scorching. What was going on? Why did the palace lord reveal such a gaze to her? Just like, what evil deeds had she done to let him down? But the palace lord didn't give her a chance to think deeply. The palace lord's eyes were once again shrouded in the cloak. Miss Yi. The palace mistress of Ethereal Palace deliberated over Yiqing Luo's form of address, as she gave a low chuckle. I heard that Miss Yi is exceptionally intelligent, this palace would like to hear. Miss Yi, what is this palace's motive? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. The palace lord continued to smile. If you guessed correctly, I will let you leave, how about that? The Lord of Abyss Palace's vision was fixed on Yiqing Luo. This gaze made Yiqing Luo feel uncomfortable all over. This palace lord. What on earth did he want to do? Why? Did she feel that his gaze had a strange feeling? Like familiarity? Like resentment? Or like? He was extremely displeased with her actions. All sorts of complicated emotions made Yiqing Luo slightly puzzled. Why did she feel that the palace lord seemed to know her? No. Impossible. If she knew this kind of person, so powerful that he was standing in front of her. If she couldn't sense such a powerful figure. It was impossible that she didn't know him. Her waist was suddenly held by a strong and powerful arm. The man pulled her behind him. His tall and straight body blocked in front of her. And also blocked the palace lord's vision. Dmo Xian's dark peach blossom eyes seemed to flash with biting cold as he looked coldly at the palace lord. If I want to bring my wife away, do you think you can stop me? Their gazes collided. The surrounding air seemed to have condensed. Yiqing Luo could even feel that in the air, there was a shapeless chi wave, constantly surging, revealing a strong murderous aura. Lord Dizun is really confident in himself. The palace master of the secluded palace sneered and suddenly raised his right arm. Yiqing Luo's expression changed. Xian. Dmo Xian's arms tightened and a transparent barrier blocked in front of the both of them. In the surroundings, the luxurious palace slowly turned into a black aura, gradually distorting and dissipating. Gradually, it turned into an abyss that resembled hell. The black aura was twisting bit by bit. It formed another scene. Weeds grew everywhere, and the air was filled with the smell of plants that had been corroded, giving off a gloomy and horrifying feeling. At this moment, a powerful airwave turned into a hurricane and collided with Dmo Xian's barrier. Yiqing Luo was in Protector Mo Xian's arms as she opened her eyes and surveyed the surroundings. It was a desolate graveyard. It was impossible to tell how old this tomb was. The oppressive atmosphere made it difficult for people to breathe. Hao Nanren, who was sitting on the chair, saw this scene and was so scared that his legs turned into jelly. Where is this? Didn't you say that you will help me take revenge? Why? Hao Nanren was listening to the conversation between Yiqing Luo and the palace lord of the secluded palace. He more or less understood some of the words. Chapter 33:48. The palace lord's sinister voice sounded as he laughed softly. His laughter was ethereal, making one's scalp go numb. I didn't say I'd help you. With a flick of his palm, Hao Nanren's fat body flew backward and landed heavily on the ground. This graveyard was a little scary. The ground was filled with broken limbs and countless bones. Hao Nanren's fall had broken bones all around. The sharp bones pierced directly into Hao Nanren's body. It was so painful that Hao Nanren's features twisted as he screamed miserably. If it wasn't for the fact that under such a situation, if you died, it would be very difficult. I really don't want to keep you alive. The palace lord's tone was filled with impatience. Finishing his words, he placed his vision on Yiqing Luo. Miss Yi, I'll give you one last chance. Are you going to guess or not? That tone seemed as though he was teasing his prey. It made Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased into a bundle. The palace lord's motive. Even if she knew, she didn't want to answer. Dmo Xian's thoughts were the same as hers. The moment the palace master of secluded darkness palace finished speaking, Dmo Xian had already held on to the young lady's waist tightly as he leapt up. His purple robe fluttered as the patterns on it seemed to be sparkling brightly. The icy cold profound ray was sharp and valiant as it headed straight towards the palace lord's face. His eyes were sealed in ice for thousands of miles. His entire body was emitting a strong flame which contained a shocking murderous intent. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo hugged Dmo Xian's waist tightly as she was stunned by the flame emitted from him. This Dmo Xian. As compared to the past times, it made one's heart tremble. This was the first time she saw it. Dmo Xian's arm hugged her tightly as his deep voice was still as gentle as usual. It's all right, close your eyes and it will end very soon. Only, this gentleness made Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly felt a tightness. She pursed her lips as she grabbed Dmo Xian's arm tightly. Wait a minute. Ah Xian. You want to kill him? Dmo Xian's eyes drooped as his deep peach blossom eyes stared deeply at her face. You don't wish for me to kill him? That tone seemed to be a little grumbling. Yiqing Luo. Surely he wasn't jealous again. It's not that I don't want you to kill him, it's just that I find it a little strange. Yiqing Luo shook her head, knitted her brows and hesitated. The palace lord of the secluded darkness palace used a trap within a trap to lure us here, so it's impossible that he didn't take any precautions. I know Ah Xian, you're very strong, but the other party is also from the upper realm. I'm worried that he might have some conspiracy against you. Behind him, the sneer of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace could be heard. Apparently, he had heard Yiqing Luo's words. Miss Yi is indeed smart. Indeed, I couldn't have lured you all here so simply. Yiqing Tang said. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace's voice was cold and sinister. Even though he was covered in a black cloak, Yiqing Luo could feel that under that cloak, there was an eerie and sinister aura. Unfortunately, I discovered it too late. The palace lord of Netherworld Palace sneered in disdain as his cold eyes looked at Dmo Xian, who had stopped his attack because of the young lady's obstruction. So what if they found out? Ever since Dmo Xian made his move, Dmo Xian had already fallen into his trap. The palace lord of the Netherworld Palace's words made Yiqing Luo's expression congealed as her heart thumped. What did he mean by this? The next moment, the palace lord of the Netherworld Palace gave her the answer. She saw the palace lord of the Netherworld Palace giving a cold laugh as he waved his black robe, following the movement of a burst of black qi. Caw. Chapter 33:49. This voice made Yiqing Luo stun slightly. She swiftly turned her head around and looked behind her. She saw the black qi curling up in the tomb behind her. Unknowingly a huge crack had appeared. Ah Xian! Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted and her heart sank as she hugged Dmo Xian's waist tightly. Her fingertips moved and the glower flame fan opened up, sweeping away the billowing flames. Don't make a move, there's a problem. Dmo Xian's large palm pressed onto Yiqing Luo's hand, and also suppressed the raging flames on the glower flame fan. What is this? Yiqing Luo looked at the huge crack behind her. The entire tomb, under this black qi, looked even more sinister and eerie. Dmo Xian's expression was cold. His frozen peach blossom eyes stared at the palace lord of secluded darkness palace as his thin lips pursed slightly. I'm fine. However, from his tone and expression, it was clear that it didn't seem like he was fine. This was the first time Yiqing Luo met with a high-ranked profound grade like Dmo Xian in a battlefield. Other than being able to sense the surrounding atmosphere, there was something strange. She was totally unable to sense where the danger was coming from like in the past. Dmo Xian had apparently guessed that the palace lord of secluded darkness palace had set up a trap here. He didn't say. It meant that this trap, to him, was a little tricky. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips as she clutched Dmo Xian's sleeve tightly. At this moment, she hated herself. Her improvement was still too slow. She kept saying that she wanted to walk side by side with Dmo Xian. But after such a long time, she was still unable to get close to Dmo Xian's height. All along, it was Dmo Xian who stood in front of her unconditionally, protecting her, helping her to sweep away everything. But now, she couldn't even help Dmo Xian with a little bit of help. There was a high possibility that she was a burden. Even though Dmo Xian's attention was focused on the palace lord of secluded darkness palace. But the young lady's depressed mood was still clearly felt by him, and he could clearly see through the young lady's thoughts. He lowered his eyes and caressed the young lady's head as he spoke warmly. You're already great, and you're not a burden. As long as you're by my side, that's enough. His warm words of love were like a hot spring, soaking into Yiqing Luo's heart. Her eyelashes fluttered, and her arms tightened around him. You're still talking about love when you're at death's door. I'd like to see how deep your love is. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace's sharp voice seemed to contain a trace of anger. As soon as he finished speaking, under the black robe, a hand was raised. His hands were long and slender, and they were very beautiful. It was obvious that it was the hand of a young man. A whirlpool of black airflow started to revolve round after round from his palm, heading straight towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo instantly felt a huge suction force, sucking her body towards the direction of that whirlpool. Little Luo, Dmo Xian immediately hugged her slender waist tightly. But just at this moment, that huge crack behind him suddenly stretched out a few arms which were formed from the black qi, and tightly wrapped around Dmo Xian. That twisting strength seemed as though it wanted to embed itself deeply into Dmo Xian's flesh. Whereas Yiqing Luo's body was still being sucked towards the direction of the palace lord of seclusion palace. The man's strength around her waist became tighter and tighter. Yiqing Luo felt that her waist was going to be chopped off directly. Chapter 3350. Yiqing Luo felt the hand on her waist stiffen. Following that, she heard that sinister laughter continuing. This palace doesn't know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Such a beautiful little beauty, if she were to be split into two. I wonder if she can still maintain her beauty. Yiqing Luo understood the meaning in his words as she endured that tearing suction force and stretched out both hands with difficulty, grabbing tightly onto Dmo Xian's arm. Ah Xian, don't listen. The hand on her waist slowly loosened. Yiqing Luo frantically tried to grab his arm. But Dmo Xian avoided it. Ah Xian. Losing the support of Dmo Xian's energy, Yiqing Luo's body speedily flew towards the Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace. A dong sound was heard. Her petite body crashed into the arms of the Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace. She didn't have time to struggle. The Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace had already locked her body tightly. Yiqing Luo couldn't struggle as she immediately raised her head and looked at Dmo Xian. She met with Dmo Xian's deep peach blossom eyes. Those black qi arms which were wrapped around him had almost entered his body. And it was continuously pulling him towards the direction of the crack. This scene made Yiqing Luo's pupils dilate as an unknown emotion started to surge in her heart. Wait for me. She only had time to see the man's thin lips moving slightly as he spat out two silent words. Following that, she saw his figure completely being sucked into the crack. The entire graveyard fell into silence. However, that man who had been protecting her, but was afraid of hurting her, had already disappeared in front of her eyes. Ah Xian, she stretched out her hand towards Dmo Xian's direction as her eyes were blood red. But in the end, she could only watch as he disappeared without a trace. Seclusion Palace. Yiqing Luo's blood-red pupils were like a demonic datura flower blooming, flashing a strange treacherous look. She was locked in the arms of the Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace. With a backhand, she grabbed the Palace Lord's collar tightly. A pair of blood-red eyes stared deadly at him. Where did you send Ah Xian to? What do you want to do to Ah Xian? Aren't you scheming against us? Why don't you send me over too? The palace master of the gloomy palace, who was being grabbed by the collar, was calm. The hand that was on her waist was still not letting go. He just looked at her quietly. He didn't answer Yiqing Luo's question. No matter how Yiqing Luo howled hysterically. He didn't seem to hear anything. Only Eustace under that black cloak, cannot see the eye, stares at her. After Yiqing Luo vented her frustrations, he didn't get a response. Gradually, he calmed down. Only then did she realize that she was very close to the palace master of the Netherworld Palace. She was so close that she could smell the cold air of the palace master of Secluded Darkness Palace. The eyes under the black cloak gave her goosebumps. Those who didn't know better might think that the palace master of Secluded Darkness Palace was secretly in love with her. He wanted to take advantage of her and admire her beauty. For some reason, at this moment, Yiqing Luo seemed to have seen a trace of familiarity from the Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace. However, she couldn't remember when she had interacted with the palace head of the Secluded Darkness Palace. Miss Yi. The palace master of Gloomy Palace, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly called her name. Yiqing Luo's expression turned cold as she loosened her grip on his collar. What motive do you have? If your target is me and Ah Xian, then wouldn't it be better to send me over to Ah Xian? Ha, ha, ha. Chapter 3351. Who said my target is you and the Overlord? The minute the Palace Lord said that, Yiqing Luo's expression turned cold. Her brows creased as her eyes were filled with doubt. The Palace Lord suddenly increased the strength in his arms, pulling the young lady's petite body closer into his arms. Looks like Miss Yi is unable to guess my intention. In this way, you are destined to stay by my side." The unfamiliar male breath made Yiqing Luo's expression turned extremely ugly. She struggled to break free from the palace lord's restraint. Her face was filled with disgust. "Don't say it as though you have some improper thoughts towards me. Aren't you afraid of losing your palace lord's face by saying it so ambiguously?" The palace lord didn't continue to hug her, allowing her to break free. After hearing the disgusting words from the young lady, the pair of eyes under the black cloak started to show traces of chilliness. However, the corners of his lips curled upwards. Then, word by word, she clearly spat out a sentence. "What if I really am?" What was it? Did he have improper thoughts towards her? Pooey pooey. Yiqing Luo was the first to spit on his face. "This cold joke, it's not funny at all." Yiqing Luo rubbed her arms, as she distanced herself from him. "Don't say that your palace lord is against me, chasing after me time after time, scheming and scheming, it's all to attract my attention. Palace lord, you're after all a high-leveled cultivator from the upper realm, isn't it a little inappropriate to tease a married woman like this?" Yiqing Luo's obvious disgusted action made the palace lord's pupils shrink slightly. The hands under the black robe, clenched into fists, tightened a little. A married woman. He gave a low laugh, disdainfully. "You and him don't seem to be married. Sooner or later." Yiqing Luo replied decisively. "So, where on earth did you send a Xian to?" The palace master of the Netherworld Palace lowered her head. The slender figure shrouded in the black cloak revealed a sense of loneliness and desolation. Yiqing Luo didn't know why, from him, she could see this kind of emotion. But this had nothing to do with her. She and the palace lord were originally enemies. The path they chose was different. The final outcome was bound to be a battle to the death. Suddenly, the palace master of the Netherworld Palace stumbled on the spot. He raised his hand under the black robe and pressed it against his head. Yiqing Luo creased her brows as she stared at his actions. However, he was secretly speculating in his heart. What kind of tricks was he playing now? In just a few breaths, the palace master of the Netherworld Palace's hand on his head slowly fell down. When he raised his head again, he looked at her. The aura on his body clearly revealed a bit of coldness. He was no longer flirting with her just now. Swish, there was a slight noise. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace suddenly approached. Against the backdrop of the graveyard, his entire body was shrouded in black gas, like a sharp blade baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, tearing open its bloody mouth. His black robe fluttered in the wind. The eyes under the cloak seemed to be dipped in poison, piercingly cold and bone-piercing. In the blink of an eye, his hand was already around her neck. The force was so great that it imprisoned her, making it difficult for her to breathe. This palace's target, right from the start, was only you. His sinister voice sounded a little misty beside her ear. The biting cold intent dispersed in the air. Circles and punches of profound waves imprisoned Yiqing Luo's four limbs. Chapter 3352. The secluded palace's target was her. She had always been very clear about this point. She had always been unable to understand why someone from the upper realm, risking the danger of being detected by the heavenly way, ran to the lower realm to build a secluded palace. And then time and time again, targeted her. What was the reason for it? To the people from the upper realm. No matter how powerful her innate talent and ability was, she was merely a cultivator from the lower realm. Why was it worth the palace lord of the secluded palace to spend so much effort to deal with her? Miss Yi, you don't have to worry. What I need is your body. As long as you listen to me, I can guarantee that your life will not be in any danger. The palace lord of the secluded palace inched closer to her as he smiled lightly. The strength in his fingers gradually tightened along with his smile. Yiqing Luo's face turned pale and gradually turned green. But she didn't stretch out her hand to pry the hand on her neck away. Nor did she struggle or beg for mercy. A pair of icy cold eyes, suffused with a seductive shade of blood, stared deadly at him. Tisk, looks like Miss Yi has already realized that I cannot kill you. The palace lord of the secluded palace released his fingers after meeting her gaze for several breaths. Yiqing Luo took a step back. Circles of red light appeared on her jade-white neck. She raised her hand and placed it on her neck. A pair of blood-colored eyes stared vigilantly at the palace lord of the secluded palace. Indeed, she could feel it. Although the palace lord of the secluded palace didn't show any mercy. It was indeed a stance to strangle her to death. But Yiqing Luo knew. The palace lord of the secluded palace would absolutely not let her die like this. Just like what he said earlier. What the palace lord of the secluded palace wanted was this body of hers. This sentence, Yiqing Luo didn't think that there was any other deeper meaning. But it was a serious meaning. The palace lord of the secluded palace wanted this body of hers to achieve a certain goal. Thinking carefully, it seemed that the palace lord of the secluded palace had repeatedly targeted her, was indeed to control her, to make her listen to them. Not only the palace lord of the secluded palace. Even the dark forces in the past were the same. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo seemed to have thought of something as her eyelashes fluttered. She abruptly raised her head and looked closely at the palace lord of secluded darkness palace. You all want my profound heart jade. After she finished speaking, the light in her eyes suddenly brightened again. No, that's not right. It's not only the profound heart jade, there are also other things. Everything that had happened in the past replayed in his mind like a slow-motion movie. Previously, the Dark King of the Dark Forces tried every possible way to snatch away the profound heart jade in my body. After that, the Dark Forces were taken away by your secluded darkness palace. You must have already known that my profound heart jade isn't simple. What you want is my profound heart jade, and this vessel that can hold the divine phoenix profound heart jade. You even joined forces with Godless Island. Previously, you sent Wu Sansha to snatch the profound phoenix ring. I'm afraid your goal is the same as the dark organizations. That's why the remnants of the dark organization are willing to be your lackeys. That's right, their goal was the same. It was all for the so-called tomb of the Divine Emperor. It was all for the so-called Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. To find the tomb of the Divine Emperor, awaken the Emperor of the Divine Emperor, and obtain the Divine Phoenix's inheritance. This was the original motive of the Dark Forces. The motive of the Palace Lord of the Secluded Darkness should be the same. Chapter 33:53. The Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace listened to her quietly. Indistinctly, his eyes under the cloak were tinged with a smiling intent. In fact, he was indeed smiling. His smile was light and filled with ridicule. Miss Yi is indeed, as the rumors say, intelligent beyond others. The underlying meaning was that everything that Yiqing Luo said. Indeed, it was true. But unfortunately, it's too late to guess it now. I have no intention to let you leave. The Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace's laughter was filled with deep meaning. Come, continue speaking. I really want to know how much you have guessed. Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk slightly. From the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace's reaction. She had guessed those things. That was about right. Her expression was calm. In actual fact, her inner heart was in turmoil. The little hand which was pressing on her chest unconsciously curled up. She looked at the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace and slightly raised her head as she pursed her lips. There's actually no problem with this heart-calming pearl in my body. And indeed, it's for my own good, right? Feng Ling thought that this heart-calming pearl was intentionally tampered with by the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace to harm her. But in actual fact, the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace had intentionally made use of Feng Ling to pass the heart-calming pearl into her hands. No matter if it was Ghost Doctor or DMO Xian. They were unable to detect any ill intentions from the heart-calming pearl. Because there was no problem with the heart-calming pearl itself. The reason was, her body was the vessel which contained the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. If she was swallowed by the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. In this world, there was probably no other vessel which could contain the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. In case anything happened to the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. That was why the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace intentionally made Feng Ling send the heart-calming pearl to her side. It was to stabilize the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. But there seems to be one point: you and the dark forces are different. Yi Qing Luo spoke again. The dark forces want my Profound Heart Jade to locate the vast water god relic and open the God Emperor's tomb. But your Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace wants my Profound Heart Jade, it seems, not only to open the God Emperor's tomb. The Palace Master of the Secluded Palace smiled. Then, what do you think I'm doing this for? This represented that Yi Qing Luo's deduction was correct once again. Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk a few more degrees. You want to obtain the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, borrow this body of mine, and seize the Profound Heart Jade at the most appropriate and suitable time. Ha! Ha ha ha! The Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace couldn't help but laugh out loud. He laughed heartily. Indeed smart. Ha ha ha, what you said is correct. The Palace Master of Dark Shadow Palace admitted very decisively, but you guessed one thing wrong. What Dark Shadow Palace wants is not only your Profound Heart Jade, they also want you as a person. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were half narrowed, but she didn't open her mouth to ask further, quietly waiting for him to continue. Sure enough, the Palace Master of the Secluded Palace didn't keep him in suspense. He smiled and said, do you really think you're just a lowly mortal from a lowly world? To be able to possess the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade that even the three realms of heaven, earth, and divine want to obtain, is he really just an ordinary person? No. Yi Qing Luo, you are not ordinary. Not only is he extraordinary, but he is also a genius that even the people of the upper realm are jealous of. Chapter 33-54. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered. Deep in her blood-colored eyes, there was a ripple of light. But her expression was still calm and indifferent. Slowly, she squinted her long and narrow eyes, her pink lips curled into a faint smile. I also feel that my identity is extraordinary. From the moment she found out that she wasn't Yi family's seventh miss, Yi Tianquang's biological daughter, she knew that her background wasn't ordinary. After all, how could an ordinary person's body bear the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade which many cultivators coveted? Plus, the Profound Flame Dubhe map which her mother left behind before she died. That map was mysterious and complicated. Even when DMO Xian came to the upper realm, one of his goals was the Profound Flame Dubhe map. That showed how mysterious the Dubhe map was. And that time when the Baiming clan died to save Yi Fengru, the one which was left behind had something about her biological father. That box. A box which hid a powerful force. She didn't even dare to open the box. It was enough to show that her parents were extraordinary. She was the daughter of extraordinary parents. How could she be ordinary? But she didn't expect that the Secluded Palace not only wanted her Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, but also wanted to corrode her body, to turn her body into a puppet. The glint in Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed brightly. She crossed her arms and looked at the Palace Lord of Secluded Palace calmly. Looks like you seem to know my identity, why don't you tell me, how arrogant is my identity? The palace lord of secluded palace thought that after he said that, Yi Qing Luo would be shocked, would resist and would go crazy. After all, no one was willing to become a puppet. A puppet which would be used by others in the future. But he didn't expect Yi Qing Luo's reaction to be so calm. So calm that she didn't believe that he had the ability to make her his puppet. Listening to Yi Qing Luo's casual question, the eyes of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace darkened. There was a hint of mysteriousness in his tone. So what if I know your identity? Don't tell me, you think you still have a chance to go to the upper realm and restore your identity? Yi Qing Luo smiled. To put it bluntly, you don't know anything about my identity. The palace lord of secluded palace choked and his body stiffened, not saying a word. Yi Qing Luo smiled again. There was a hint of malice in her eyes. She narrowed her eyes and looked at him with interest. Word by word, she said something that shocked him again. Palace Master of the Dark Abyss Palace. No, more accurately, I should call you, the Palace Master of the Dark Abyss Palace on the surface. The Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace shuddered. What do you mean? You're not the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. Yi Qing Luo's smile remained unchanged as her tone was firm. No, I can't say that you're not, I can only say, you're just the palace mistress that was pushed out on the surface, and there's someone else behind the scenes. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace was silent for a long while before she said, I have concealed it very well. How did you see through it? His voice was still a little hoarse. Yi Qing Luo smiled, imposing manner, and the feeling between words. Do you think that I'm not strong enough to be the palace master of the secluded palace? He laughed in anger. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. You're very strong and imposing. But, you're not the real palace master of the Netherworld Palace. Palace master of the Netherworld Palace. Since his imposing manner was very strong, then which part had gone wrong? He had forgotten to tell his babies that Master Mo had taken part in a QQ reading activity. From tomorrow onwards, which was on the 1, he needed his babies to leave a message in the book comment section and interact with Master Mo. Master Mo would reply to all of them. Master Mo's post in the book comment section, hoping for your likes and replies, and for the QQ reading activity, Great God said, Master Mo would adjust it to 10 book currency per question. The mission requirement was to raise a total of 20. Great God said that his babies could come forward to ask questions. Chapter 33:55. You are the palace master of the Palace of Darkness, but the person who truly wants me is definitely not you. Yi Qing Luo continued to smile. I've crossed hands with the Palace of Darkness for such a long time, so I'm considered to have some understanding towards them. If you hadn't answered my previous speculations, I probably wouldn't have thought in this direction. Because the person who truly wants this body of mine, the person who wants the divine phoenix profound heart jade, will not answer my questions, nor will he tell me more. Because that person knew very well that if he said too much, it would make me suspicious. Once I became suspicious, your goal and plan would very likely fail. She chuckled, and a chill spread from the depths of her charming eyes. I don't think that you went through so much trouble to separate Ah Xian from me just to discuss things about me with me. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace was silent for a long time. The eyes under the black cloak were also filled with ice. He smiled as well. As expected of Miss Yi. No wonder the dark forces were defeated by you. The elite troops of the Palace of Gloomy Shadows couldn't do anything to you. He slowly stepped forward. He walked towards Yi Qing Luo. The yin qi in the graveyard was chilling. As he walked, the black gas shrouding his body floated. It made him seem even more treacherous and terrifying. Yi Qing Luo did not hide. Until he walked in front of her. Yiqing Luo then slowly raised her head and met his gaze. His face was calm, and his eyes were as calm as still water. He stretched out his hand, wanting to touch Yiqing Luo's face. The girl, who had been standing still all this time, turned her head slightly. "You can talk, but don't touch me. I'm a married woman." She did not know which of her words had struck him. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace's fingers suddenly exerted force and forcibly grabbed her chin. Under the cloak, one could vaguely feel his ruthless gaze. "Yiqing Luo, I admit that you're very smart, but you've probably forgotten that even if there's someone behind me, I am indeed the mistress of Secluded Darkness Palace." He closed in through the cloak. His breath splashed onto Yiqing Luo's face. The unfamiliar male scent made Yiqing Luo's slender brows crease tightly. She took a step back in discomfort. Her chin was tightly gripped by his hand. "In the end, you still belong to me," his hoarse and shrill voice carried a hint of madness. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly trembled. Why did these words sound a little weird? Could the palace master of the Secluded Darkness Palace really be interested in her? She raised her hand, trying to pry his hand away. However, he suddenly withdrew his hand, and even his body took a few steps back. He pulled a distance away from Yiqing Luo. That hand which was originally pinching Yiqing Luo's chin was pressed tightly on her head. "What I mean is that you belong to me, as my vessel." His voice was somewhat breathless, as if he was suppressing something. She looked at his state. Yiqing Luo smiled bluntly. She raised her lips and smiled wickedly. "Looks like you're just being controlled by others." Once his actions went beyond what a palace master of the Secluded Darkness Palace should do. The real mastermind behind the scenes. The forbidden curse on him would be able to restrain his actions in time. Chapter 3356. The palace master of Netherworld Palace, although she couldn't see his expression. But Yiqing Luo sensed his gaze from him. All of them revealed the same message: "Are you a little stupid? Was there such a person who would steal someone else's corner so openly? How much confidence did she have that she could pry him away?" Yiqing Luo smiled. She didn't really want the palace master of Secluded Darkness Palace to betray them. He knew so much about the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Her identity was the palace master of the Dark Palace on the surface. How could he bear to leave the Palace of Darkness? Moreover, she had no way of knowing the relationship between the palace master of Darkness Palace on the surface and the person behind Darkness Palace. They did not expect him to betray them at all. His words were just a test. He wanted to test if the real mastermind was here. However, from the performance of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace, that person, he shouldn't be here. Although the person in front of him wasn't the real palace master of the Secluded Darkness Palace. However, his strength was also above hers. He should be someone from the upper realm. She might not even be able to handle him, not to mention the person behind the scenes. He knew that the real mastermind was not here. Yiqing Luo could rest assured and find a breakthrough point for him to get Dmo Xian back. Or send her to Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo believed that with Dmo Xian's strength, he would not be trapped. But it was obvious that the other party had purposely set a trap for Dmo Xian. She would still worry and be afraid. At least, she had to be safe and sound until Dmo Xian returned. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath, trying her best to make her expression look calm and indifferent. However, before she could open her mouth again, intending to get more information about the Dark Nether Palace from him, suddenly, he felt a cold breeze on his cheek. Yiqing Luo seemed to have a reflex reaction as she evaded the attack and the palm wind fell downwards. "Bitch! I want you dead!" How Nanren's hysterical roar came into her ears. At the moment when Yi Qing Luo's palm wind descended, he didn't evade at all. Instead, he faced Yi Qing Luo's palm wind and pressed forward. Hao Nanren's profound grade was sealed by Yi Qing Luo's pills. All that was left was brute force. At some point in time, a dagger had appeared in his hand. Facing Yi Qing Luo's palm wind, the dagger in his hand stabbed fiercely towards Yi Qing Luo's body. Yi Qing Luo retaliated out of reflex. With how much Hao Nanren cherished his life, he would definitely avoid it. She had never expected that Hao Nanren would disregard everything and try to kill her. The palm hit Hao Nanren's chest. But the dagger in his hand also stabbed towards Yi Qing Luo's body. Yi Qing Luo had not expected this. When the dagger fell, it was also too late to dodge. Damn it! Suddenly, he heard a low reprimand. She felt her body lighten. She was pulled back a little. The pain that he had imagined did not fall. After Yi Qing Luo steadied herself, she raised her eyes to take a look. Immediately, he was stunned on the spot. In front of her was the palace master of the Dark Abyss Palace, who was dressed in a black robe and whose face couldn't be seen. His hand was gripping the dagger with his bare hand. The sharp edge of the blade cut his palm. Blood oozed out. And that Hao Nanren, who was about 200 over kilograms, was also sent flying. You! Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips as her thoughts ran wild. The words that were in her mouth couldn't come out. What on earth was going on? Had this world become a fantasy? Why? Would the palace master of the Dark Abyss Palace block this dagger for her with his bare hand? Master Mo is taking part in the QQ Readings April Book Comments section activity. I hope that the babies are able to actively participate and help Master Mo and 7th Miss to fight for a ranking. The activity content was as follows. These were the tasks that the activity had assigned and must be completed by Master Mo in the QQ Reading app. 1. Master Mo will post a book comments post in the book comments section, hoping that the babies will actively like and reply. 2. Hoping that the babies will actively leave a comment in the book comments section and interact with Master Mo. Master Mo will reply one by one and will add more details according to the content. 3. For the latest chapter, I hope that the babies will leave a comment. Every comment and comment will also be counted as a ranking of points. 4. QQ Readings. Great God said, Master Mo will adjust to 10 book coins per question. After Master Mo answers, I hope that the babies will leave a comment under the Great God's comment and interact with Master Mo. Master Mo likes to research on pseudo sounds and is not a professional pseudo student. You can try to answer the babies' questions with a mature sister's voice, Lolita's voice, and young girl's voice. The babies can casually tease Master Mo. Master Mo had always said that the continuation of a book was not only due to Master Mo's efforts alone. Along the way, the baby's support and love were indispensable in this activity, not to mention the top 10 or top 3. As long as we are not at the bottom, we will not let down your support and love for 7th Miss, and will not let you down. That is enough. No matter what the result is, this is a glory that belongs to all of us. Chapter 3357. After the shock and astonishment. Yi Qing Luo reflexively congealed her expression as she looked at the palace lord alertly and asked coldly, What tricks are you trying to play now? Ha! The palace lord scoffed as he slowly raised his head and looked at his hand, which was filled with blood. Following that, he casually threw the dagger onto the ground. The dagger, which was stained with blood, made a clang sound as it landed on the ground, which was littered with bones. He shook his bleeding hand as he gave a mocking smile. This palace saved you, and your words are really hurtful. Saved? Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as her expression turned increasingly vigilant. Are you trying to play the trick of injuring yourself? Trying to use this to move me so that I will listen to your arrangements? The palace master of Netherworld Palace suddenly stopped talking. Even his swaying hand froze. not sure if it was an illusion. Yiqing Luo somehow felt that there was a deathly stillness coming from him. Which sentence was it that had stabbed him this time? Yiqing Luo felt that this man was really hard to get along with. Why did she feel that every sentence he said could step on his minefield? Yiqing Luo felt very tired. Suddenly, the palace lord raised his head as though he sensed something as he raised his hand towards Yiqing Luo's arm. Yiqing Luo instinctively evaded. What are you trying to do? You. His hoarse voice just spat out a word. Just at this moment, a few loud bang 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 sounds were heard as the entire graveyard was suddenly bombarded. The ground shook as a small crack appeared. Yiqing Luo's body couldn't stop shaking. It was at this instant that he grabbed her wrist tightly. Yiqing Luo didn't manage to shake it off in time. Her body suddenly tightened. The palace lord pulled her along as he sprinted madly towards another direction. His other hand, which was still dripping blood, hung by the side of his body. Blood flowed as it dripped onto the ground. What are you going to do? Yiqing Luo hadn't figured out where did that explosion sound came from as she was pulled along by him as they ran with all their might. She panted lightly as she spat out 3 words. She could feel a strong, vast, and majestic dark force eroding the entire graveyard. It made her feel a suffocating feeling. What was this energy? What was going on? Damn it! Too late. He could vaguely hear the hoarse voice of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace reprimanding him. Then, halted by his sudden movement, she bumped into his broad, hard back. Her entire face was smashed into his back. Yiqing Luo didn't have the chance to rebuke. Because she covered her mouth and nose, and the moment she raised her head, they saw a figure dressed in a black robe, the same as the palace master of the Dark Palace, standing before them. Looking at the figure, it should be the physique of a man. Chapter 33:58. The palace lord's figure stiffened as he bellowed in a deep and cold voice. The overlord has already followed the original plan and entered the dark array. How did I spoil it? That man's head moved. Yiqing Luo could feel that the gaze which was shot over from that man was as cold as a knife. That man asked, "Where do you want to bring her to?" The palace lord's aura turned gloomier and gloomier as his voice became even tighter. "I naturally want to bring her back to the Palace of Darkness." His words paused as he seemed to be impatient as he frowned. "Since when is it your turn to tell me what to do? If I don't come, do you think that you can still keep your life?" That man scoffed coldly as his tone had no respect towards the palace lord at all. Yiqing Luo could tell. Although the palace master of the Netherworld Palace kept on saying, this palace master of the Netherworld Palace didn't say anything. But in actual fact, towards that man, he was obviously on his guard and apprehensive. Since he was the palace lord of the palace on the surface. In the Palace of Darkness, other than the real mastermind, who else did he need to be wary of? But it was very obvious. The man in front of him was definitely not the mastermind. After hearing that man's words, the palace lord's body tensed up even more. That hand which was dripping with blood was clenched tightly. When Yiqing Luo saw that, the uneasiness in her heart grew even more. If it was this palace lord, she would be able to feel slightly more at ease. Because she could feel it. This palace lord didn't have any special evil intentions. But the man in front of her was different. The aura around his body was purposely released towards her. Furthermore, it was filled with malicious intent. Even though she couldn't see his face, she could also feel his bone-piercing gaze. "Your mission has ended, I'll handle the rest." That man opened his mouth once again as his voice was as cold as ice. The figure which was blocking in front of Yiqing Luo stiffened once again but didn't leave. "This is my mission. It should be completed by me. Just based on you, when will you be able to bring this woman back? That man was filled with disdain. Anyway, as long as she's left with one breath, it's not important how I bring her back. As soon as he finished speaking, a burst of chilling aura charged towards Yiqing Luo's direction in a domineering and overbearing manner. It was an irresistible pressure. This caused Yiqing Luo's expression to change unpredictably. At the bottom of his heart, a wave of shock surged up. This person, he really wanted to kill. Yiqing Luo swiftly raised her glower flame fan, and her footwork was about to display her intention to retreat from behind the palace lord of secluded darkness palace. However, the force gripping her wrist tightened its grip on her. She couldn't escape at all. Damn it. There was no way to avoid this powerful dark force. He could only take it head-on. However, the man who was holding her arms suddenly waved his sleeve. Majestic profound waves spread out in all directions. It collided with that person's ferocious attack. The man growled, "I don't need you. This is my prey." Bang, 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 the two forces collided in the air. Profound waves vibrated. Severed limbs and dried bones flew everywhere in the graveyard. The three of them stood steadily in the midst of this chi wave. No, to put it more accurately, Yiqing Luo was forcefully pulled by the palace lord of secluded darkness palace so that she wouldn't be sent flying after the collision of the two forces. But her internal organs weren't feeling well. Chapter 33:59. The palace lord straightened his back as his voice turned cold. "Are you trying to fight with me?" That man sneered, "I'm saving you." "I don't need it." The palace lord replied decisively, "I know very well what I'm doing." "I think you don't know what you're doing." That man's vision seemed to have swept past the palace lord's hand, which was cut by the dagger. Looking at that hand, which was filled with fresh blood, and the blood was dripping down, that man's smile turned even colder. "Either I do it, or you bring her back to the palace lord." The palace lord seemed as though he wanted to rebuke something. But he lowered his eyes and took a look at his own hand, which was dripping blood. He hung his head down. His tensed-up body slowly turned around, facing Yiqing Luo. He looked at Yiqing Luo's face as his voice turned chilly. "Go." Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly as she took a step back. Her brows were filled with alertness towards him. Although, as compared to that man who suddenly appeared earlier, this palace lord of the palace lords seemed to be helping her. But who knew if this was a trick played by the palace lord? One white face and one black face. Then he deceived her just like that, to willingly fall into the pit. Seeing the distrust in Yiqing Luo's eyes, the palace lord's mood sunk once again. He suddenly raised his hand and locked her wrist. Pulling her, he took big steps towards that man's direction. Yiqing Luo's expression changed. "Let go." Before Dmo Xian returned, she couldn't possibly leave with him. The strength of his fingers increased. "If you leave with me now, you'll suffer less." "I won't leave with you." Yiqing Luo's other hand climbed onto his fingers as she forcefully pried his hand away. "Palace lord of the palace lord of the palace, this kind of action of yours, not to mention your companions, will misunderstand you. Even I feel that you're secretly in love with me." The palace lord's hand was violently flung away. He stared at Yiqing Luo. He didn't say a word for a long time. That low pressure made Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. Did she say anything wrong? It was obviously him, playing the role of the good cop for no reason. It was hard not to be misunderstood. "All right." A gust of cold wind brushed past his face. She saw that person stand between her and the palace master of the secluded darkness palace. He was getting closer and closer. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the chilly murderous intent from that person. She frowned in alarm, her expression tense. That man didn't hesitate as he abruptly raised his hand, and his profound energy exploded as his palm wind surged and struck towards Yiqing Luo. It was extremely fast. Even the palace master of the Netherworld Palace didn't have time to react. Why are you dilly-dallying? I can't stand it anymore. How much time do you want to waste? Just cripple him and bring him back to complete the mission. The credit is yours. That person shouted impatiently. His hand movements became increasingly swift and fierce. The surging energy in the air caused people to be shocked. That person's attack was simply too unexpected. Yiqing Luo, who had sensed the dangerous aura, almost reflexively displayed her footwork. Under the palm wind, a red dress flashed past like the setting sun. Rumble. The deafening cracking sound caused the entire graveyard to collapse. You actually dodged it. That person was slightly shocked and then laughed. Indeed interesting. Ghost King. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace shouted sternly, "You've interfered with this palace's mission time and time again. This palace has the right to punish you for the crime of insubordination." The black-robed man who was addressed as Ghost King paused slightly. In his laughter, there was a faint hint of a smile. April Fool's Small Theater, Overlord upholds the rule of the husband. Yiqing Luo, smiling and waving Xian, come over Dmo Xian, hugging. We've only left for a short while and Lil Luo, already misses me. Yiqing Luo, pushing him, stop fooling around. I have a very serious matter to tell you. Dmo Xian, evil smile. All right, Lil Luo, you say it. Yiqing Luo, staring at him solemnly, listen carefully. What I want to say is, I don't like you. Dmo Xian, staring at her. Oh. Yiqing Luo, clutching his lapel. Hey. Do you understand what I'm saying? What kind of attitude is this? Dmo Xian, raising his eyebrows. I understand. Yiqing Luo, don't you have anything to say? Dmo Xian, smiling. What do you mean? Yiqing Luo, exasperated. I said I don't like you anymore. I don't want to be with you anymore. Shouldn't you be begging me, coaxing me, and pampering me so that I'll change my mind? Dmo Xian, continuing to smile. Oh, no need. Yiqing Luo, unhappy again. Turning to leave, Dmo Xian, hooking her waist. Lil Luo, Yiqing Luo, turning her head away from him. Don't touch me. I'm very angry now, the kind that can't even be coaxed by kissing, hugging and raising me up high. Dmo Xian, hugging her tightly, sighing. I know what day it is over there. Yiqing Luo, dazed. How did you know? Dmo Xian, previously when I went to the 21st century, I wanted to understand you and specially inquired about the customs over there. Yiqing Luo, dazed. You're an ancient person, is it really good not to follow my routine? Dmo Xian, April Fool's Day, everything said is ironic, so. Lil Luo, said she doesn't like me, actually she likes me very much, right? Yiqing Luo, turning her head to leave. I didn't say anything, again. Goodbye. Dmo Xian, locking her waist tightly, lifting her chin. Lil Luo, although. I know, you're saying ironic, but hearing Lil Luo's mouth, saying such hurtful words, my heart, still feels very uncomfortable. Yiqing Luo, looking at the man's approaching face, resisting to no avail. What do you want to do? Chapter 3360. But Ghost King didn't respond to the palace lord. His figure flashed as he passed by the palace lord and pounced towards Yiqing Luo again. His entire body was filled with a murderous aura. The chilly aura enveloped Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's pupils dilated. Her long eyelashes trembled uncontrollably. This chilly aura. It made her limbs numb and unable to move at all. Even if she wanted to avoid it, she was suppressed by his aura. This man. What level was the profound grade? He was so powerful. She was about to step into the legendary stage, a sage profound grade, but she couldn't even withstand his aura. Ghost King. The palace master of Netherworld Palace roared, his tone filled with rage. Since Palace Lord wants to punish, then punish. But in order for the mission to proceed smoothly, I will take over and bring this prey back. Ghost King's tone was very calm, totally disregarding his anger. And with a wave of his sleeves, he took out a rope and tied up the palace master of the secluded palace. The palace lord was so angry that he cursed. But the more he struggled, the rope that was tied on his body was wrapped even tighter. Just as Ghost King's attention was placed on the palace lord, Yiqing Luo was following Old Man Tsang's instructions, slowly circulating the profound qi in her profound jade heart, slowly releasing it to resist the invisible pressure. Like a warm current of profound qi, it spread out in her body bit by bit, and lingered around her limbs and bones. That suffocating feeling in her chest finally felt much more comfortable. Ghost King's reaction was very sharp. Yiqing Luo's aura fluctuated slightly. He had already speedily fixed his vision on Yiqing Luo. Even the cloak couldn't hide the chill in his eyes. You can still resist my pressure. Ghost King's tone was filled with interest. I really can't underestimate you. While they were talking, Yiqing Luo only felt a chilly wind blowing by her cheek. A stinging pain eroded from her shoulder. Ghost King unknowingly stood in front of her again. One hand pinched her shoulder. 5 fingers exerted force and Yiqing Luo could clearly hear a crack sound coming from her body. Yiqing Luo gave a muffled groan. The intense pain caused cold sweat to seep out of her forehead. Her dislocated shoulder caused her to be unable to move her right hand. This restricted her from using the glowing flame fan with her right hand. Yiqing Luo's breathing congealed as she endured the intense pain on her shoulder. She lifted her left hand and flipped her palm to hit the arm that was lying across her shoulder. That palm strike was ruthless. The Ghost King's hand instinctively retreated. Yiqing Luo immediately retreated, avoiding the Ghost King's attack range. Shortly after, he quickly grabbed the glowing flame fan with his left hand. Profound qi gathered and with a flick of his fingers, the glowing flame fan was like a raging flame, blossoming with raging flames. Bang! There was an explosion in the air. The powerful and vast profound energy surged violently. The Ghost King was also pushed back 2 steps by that palm strike. He raised his hand and looked at the arm that had been hit. His entire body was filled with coldness. The black yin qi in the surroundings was constantly twisting and swirling. His figure looked hazy and blurry. This person called Ghost King was not easy to deal with. No, to put it more accurately, she couldn't deal with him at all. If it wasn't for Old Man Tsang's timely guidance on how to retract his profound energy and escape from that person's demonic claws, there was a possibility that her entire right hand would have been broken by the Ghost King. The disparity between their abilities was just too huge, if this carried on. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.